Has everyone finished reading the minutes? Okay.
Sorry.
Warren and Jim. Well, Warren last week.
You haven't seen my work yet, so. Hold on.
I just think it's wonderful that Warren makes what you say sound so wonderful.
He's
Better
really,
than what it came out.
he's really good at that.
Yes, he is.
That's like to go back.
So,
That's a good idea.
Warren, should this whole, rocket science thing not work out for you? There's always room for you.
This is one of those things that I think that as they get more speech to type language.
This is just one of those British things.
Yeah, Amazon, look, it's here.
Got it for you already? But I said it's shorthand. We all do what it meant. Oh, yeah, We don't need to absolutely. correct.
Oh, yeah, no.
And I can't say it didn't sound bad.
Yeah.
Really works.
That's, yeah. Well, that's.
I'm not gonna vote on these minutes anyway.
I am well.
Last Saturday.
Like you do it.
Is there principal code?
Busy time in the month of March, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Beware the Estes market.
And then it gets busy.
And then it, oh, then it gets really busy. Well, then it just gets short. You can't get everything.
And then it's summer.
What page are you on, Sean?
Well, I'm excited for your summer.
And I went to one, and if I asked about collaboration with people,
What are you gonna do?
they said, well, we have some mitigation methods.
Okay.
Mineral renovation. So, that's not true, because it's all 0 to 3, no planning consent. And many
Oh, okay.
kids now, early.
Yeah, I'm gonna put siding up front.
Partially funded by the health center, partially by the district. So,
That doesn't.
Except our business.
Thank goodness we have an actual
I had a
higher
great roofer.
executive director.
He is 62, this guy's not.
And
Guy comes out, throws a thing of shingles over his shoulder. And goes up on the roof. I was so impressed. I said, if I could do it like that. It's one of those like shingles, it's 100 pounds.
I don't know if you did that.
I was very
not
impressed.
here,
And there are 3 elementary schools in
right.
No more. Plymouth,
Well, hopefully he's
Mayflower,
studying
Monroe.
in this district.
One of my friends who teaches
Royal
the
Oaks.
other day, there was 4. They had,
It's 4.
discussion around it, it's just whether or not there's anything
Are we gonna accept them as
incorrect
written?
or not. And I move that we accept the minutes.
I second.
Pull your microphone a little closer to you, Sean.
And I have to turn it on also. I
Well-
move that we accept the minutes.
I second.
I have an adjustment, I'm sorry. Is Warren taking the notes? I'm sorry.
I can't change the minutes on the fly this time, so I don't want to.
Oh, okay, no, on page 4, it's minor, but I just wouldn't want anybody to misconstrue when we put Latin American and African American groups. Just add an O. I'm okay with some people like using Hispanic, Latino's okay, but when you say Latin American, it could be misconstrued as thinking people from South America. And then the other one was on page 3, right at the top, the 50 million on AIDS. Actually, they spend a lot more than that. It's 50 million on outside agency one-on-one AIDS. That's what
But what was said during the meeting?
that's what I said. That's what I said at the meeting.
So GB, under GB.
Yeah, the very first item I said, LAUSD spends 50 million a year on outside agency one-on-one AIDS. And I think I might have said for about 1,100 kids.
And I'd like to make a suggestion on the minutes, the way I'm gonna suggest we set up a key. Let's say we've got the header that has the individual's names. Well, if we're only gonna refer to people by initials, I'm gonna suggest that, let's say under Warren Skidmore, maybe the protocol could be WS. So people can reference back and know who we're talking about.
Thank you. They turned that volume up today.
All right, so we're gonna move on. It says, philosophy and terminology as defined by IDEA. And I'm not sure if that's a document, or was a discussion you guys missed the last.
Oh, it's okay. The subcommittee is going to just wrap up the definition. That item is actually simply remaining on the agenda until we actually do so.
Okay.
Question. So we are working on finalizing the definition of inclusion. My question to the group is, do we feel there's a need for is there any other term that we feel lacks a consistent point of reference to throughout the district that we need to officially clarify?
You know, in having a discussion the other day with a general ed teacher, she used the word over and over, inclusion, because a child was in her classroom but spent the majority of their time actually in the resource program, which really, because they were there more than 50% of the time, really means that they're in a special day class type program. And I said, no, that's really mainstreaming. It's not really inclusion. So there are words out there: integration, inclusion, mainstreaming, and I think that the committee may need to look at those terms too, to make sure that they're understood and operationally defined. I mean, you just look at it and know exactly what that student's program might look like.
I agree with Sean.
And I think resource room is a key term, because it can be used by people who don't want a student in their classroom to be a place where they go, when that's not the intent of a resource room as it applies to the services that we're trying to deliver. So,
And it may not be that they don't want them in their room, that's the only support system in place. So that's the only option, is to have a child removed and doing pull-out services rather than included services. I've seen a lot of IEPs in the district that say like 1 hour a month consultation, an hour, 2 times a week, 30-minute sessions. A lot of those pullouts, well, I'm getting into a different subject, but I'm concerned that those things are not being implemented because many of the general ed teachers that I've talked to do not get a chance to do the consultation with the resource teacher. So even when there is a system in place to give collaboration and support to general ed, it may not be fully fulfilled.
And so we are saying that essentially a shared vocabulary actually needs to be developed. We know that we have inclusion. We're going to add, that was a tactful way of putting it, wasn't it?
But you're absolutely right. I mean, special ed is alphabet soup, and unless you know exactly what alphabet soup we're talking about, you're going to be clueless.
I think that what occurs is, and quite honestly, this happens it's not just special ed, it's everywhere you hear a term, you believe that you understand conceptually what that term is, and then you say it, use it, and it's not the right or most appropriate or most accurate descriptor for something. And then just as a result of informal conversations, it simply gets passed on. The same as we have procedures in place, but over time, those procedures get reshaped. And 5 years down the road, you've got a new person who joins an organization and someone says, this is how we build our blocks. But that doesn't relate back to actually what may be in the company manual for how we build our blocks. It's just that informal learning often changes the definition or the original intent of something. So with that, I apologize, because it was raining, I didn't want to get my chart paper out of the car. So I'm just going to write down those words, but I'm going to ask you to actually think about other terms.
So Sean, I have 2 words, it's mainstreaming and collaboration.
Integration.
Integration.
Yeah, I have
But
integration.
I just started to think of, it's going to take 1 minute to say this, that I think that this collaborative model that I brought up really was a move of the district towards transitioning back to general education, and general education really having the lead on the instruction, with special education being a support, which originally was the idea. But I don't think it's being implemented in a way because, I don't know, I mean, maybe there's not a step-by-step plan, but that might actually fall under transitions rather than, curriculum or curriculum in the classroom, or every student, every school. It may be about really the transitioning that we're attempting to do, but not really writing very good transition plans around how general ed's going to have that support.
Jim.
I also think it goes under compliance, because I think the charge of every team is to consider the least restrictive environment, and you start in general education, the team needs to consider that, and then talk about the needs of the child and the services that are needed to meet the goals. And you talk about a more restrictive environment, but we should always start at the least restrictive. Every conversation should start in general education, and we should be talking our way through the services the child needs until we get to a place where the needs meet the service.
Okay, we have
And
Ruth.
so I
I'm
think-
sorry. Go ahead, Jim.
No, I'm good.
Ruth and then Judy.
Well, I think part of the problem, or whatever the word is I'm missing, the process breaks down when we have general ed, the focus of general ed is, proficient, and the academics and the testing and pacing. And we all know that all kids have, all different opportunities of learning and pacing. And when many of our kids don't fit into that paradigm in the general ed classroom, then we have the general ed supports that, happen in different environments, the more restricted environments, to incorporate that. And I think it's timing. I mean, we have these kids, all of our kids, 6 hours a day, and then half an hour of recess and half an hour of lunch. So it's essentially 5 hours of academic time. And collaboration becomes a breakdown. It's like you pass in the halls, you know, talk 2 seconds when you're connecting. So I think somehow we all have to be aware that it is collaborative in the best of circumstances, but how are we going to do this meaningfully in an academic-based environment where all kids are special?
Sorry, Judy, then Jim.
Well, first of all, I think we need to keep in mind that least restrictive environment is the least restrictive environment for a child. What is least restrictive environment for one child is not a least restrictive environment for another child. A hospital setting could be the least restrictive environment for one child. The regular ed classroom with collaboration could be the least restrictive environment for another child. And I think one of the things that we haven't really discussed, I feel as though our resource specialists there are so many things being demanded of them. I think we are not acknowledging the fact as to what their job description, written or unwritten, actually looks like, because they are responsible for the kids' inclusion, they're responsible for the collaboration, they're responsible for providing the services, and at our school, our pro resource specialist also ends up taking on many of the issues of kids who are actually having major problems in the classroom who aren't on our caseload. And when the RSP aides were cut to 5 hours, I believe, am I right? Yeah. 4 hours? 4. I think that is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard, because those RSP aides are the ones in many cases that are providing the direct services to kids and doing the push-in. The RSP teacher cannot do their job without having instructional assistants to assist them. And I just don't understand where we were headed with that when we cut those aides to 4 hours. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Perhaps the representatives of the subcommittee for staffing and hiring might want to address that as part of your subcommittee recommendations, is reviewing the use. I can see that as a smart objective that would be stated something like review the use and support for RSP teachers by fill in the blank date for the purpose of, you know, whatever the purpose is that you determine. But it does have a place, it has a home within the subcommittee. Actually, we have Jim, and then we have Mike Costello.
I'd just like to say that it's the goal of an education agency to have every child reach proficiency on the standardized testing. And I think we need to keep that in mind. All students, whether they're my CMA kids, my Kappa kids, whatever level they're at, our goal is always to move them towards proficient and, you know, above and beyond that. You know, even our Kappa kids who are Kappa level 1, our goal is to get them to Kappa level 2, to Kappa level 3, and to move them up that testing regimen so that they are proficient. It's not a sentence.
Mike.
I just want to acknowledge what Judy said about the RSPs and what their definitions, how their jobs are defined and what they have to do, and tying it back to what Jim has mentioned on several occasions is that right now, I believe, we have our system is reliant on people, and it's not we need to get to a place where the system works as a system. And in our experience, my family's experience, we have great people, but when that person is removed because he or she is sick or on vacation or whatever, the entire system collapses. And we, as this collective body, through all these recommendations we're putting together, our goal is to create a system that is foolproof on people, meaning regardless of who you put in, as long as they're qualified, and can do the job, they can step in and the system flourishes regardless of what happens. And Judy, I don't believe she is on the I forget what committees you're on, but I think when we get to the end of this process of the SMART objectives, I think it'd be beneficial if all of us walked around and looked at all the categories, and even if we're not actively on that committee, we all have input and can add things to make it as comprehensive as possible.
I'm sorry, who was after? Ruth?
I just wanted to recommend too, in kind of a piggyback on what Judy had mentioned, that RSP aides and RSP teachers, as well as speech and SLPAs, are on different schedules. So in order to support the teachers, instructional aid students are in the classroom as long as the kids are in the classroom, but the aides are 6 hours and teachers are 8 hours. So I would recommend to the staffing and hiring people that there be, an equivalency
parity.
for support, right?
Okay, we have Herman, and then Luis, and then I'd like for us to dive into the actual work. Not that the conversation has not been beneficial, it's been informative. We're engaged in a group learning, which is really great, but, slave driver here. Herman.
So about 6, 7 years ago, I went to a TASH conference, and I met Julie Fabricini, who helped start Chime School, and immediately went to tour the school, and it was amazing what I saw. I saw everything that we're talking about here, everything, the collaboration, everybody being on board. Mike, the aide that was, if you missed a day, well, everybody else, they just filled in automatically because everybody knew in the classroom knew the IEP goals for the kid. So there was no, somebody's got to go to the bathroom. There's a lot of instances you got to go to an IEP. Everybody's on board, and so anyways, I started arranging tours. So Percy Clark came into town. We took him, the brass of PUSD, we took them to the school. Diaz came in, called over there. We arranged for leadership to go. We're now on a third generation of leadership at this district. I know that Dr. McDonald attended Chime, but I urge, if you don't know Chime School, it's a 30-minute drive without traffic. It's in Woodland Hills. I urge everybody to go see the school. And they, when we talk about culture, philosophy, non-removal of kids, every time I've walked into a different classroom, so I've seen different perspectives, I've seen different people work. They don't just take me to the classroom where they got all the support that day. They tour, they spread everybody out. And I'll never forget the day that Judy Barhyde and I, in one of the tours, our past SELPA director, we walked into a classroom, and it was time it just turned out one of the kids were going up in front of the class, little third graders were going up in front of the class to read, and then it was Johnny's turn, and so they went up, and they rolled him up to the front of the class, and then Johnny couldn't talk. I think Johnny had a feeding tube or something. And one of his classmates went up and pushed the button on his little desk, on his wheelchair, and then it read the paragraph that was assigned to Johnny. And then Johnny was rolled back. So it took a little extra effort, but what we saw was a culture of a school where that kid, he still participated. He was there. The other kids were learning a whole bunch because they are able to see that, hey, Johnny's got value. And maybe he can't speak it, but he went up there and he was there, and then he's like looking at everybody, and everybody's looking at him, and there was value. And the other kid in the art class that he couldn't paint. So grandpa comes into class and he buys one of those 50-cent little PVC pipe that's got, one of those little corner pieces. and that fit in his hand actually perfectly. Cost 50 cents. He drilled a hole, put a little screw in it, held the brush for him, and then I saw the kid, he's doing his art. We don't need a $3,000 device, or we don't need to hire this expensive expert to come in. There's common sense. There's things that it could be resolved just with community, with everybody being involved. And anyways, I know I went a little long on this, but I just urge everybody, if you can, if you go and go see a school like Chime, and then you sit down with the director and you ask the questions about the obstacles that will be surfacing as we talk about this, contracts, job descriptions that end here, and it didn't link because this job description, I only do behavior, and our district doesn't allow me to do instruction. We need to figure out a way to stop it's not my job to do this. We got to figure out it's all our job to do this.
I want to, not to belabor the point, but because of the budgetary constraints that literally every educational institution is experiencing, that type of thinking, when money was plentiful, funds were flowing, organizations could afford to say, this person does this. I often tease, a friend of mine is a manager for Disney Executive Support. And we were having a conversation one day, and he shared that, my guys will come in after the guys go in and unplug the machines. And then next, the guys will come in and wrap up the machines. And then the next group is going to come in, and they'll actually move the machines to the truck. And then the movers will take over, and they will then transport the equipment. And then on the other end, we've got to have the folks who have been approved to unload and place it in the office. And then there's a different set of people, a different team, who goes in and plugs the stuff in again. And then there's the folks who go in and make certain the configurations are still correct and nothing occurred. You had these very finite responsibilities that people had the luxury of operating within. Now, was that a bad thing? No, it was indicative of the times that we were in. But because of the times that we live in right now and going forward, that culture shift of widening the net to make certain that there's coverage until the next piece picks up, or there's some overlap, but obviously with some understanding of what that overlap looks like. That's the kind of thing, the type of thinking that the task force is being asked to provide strategy and action plans for. We know that job classifications exist. We know that labor contracts exist. But again, if a classification that is so finite exists that it doesn't allow two functions to actually meet, and there's a gap, or there's some bridge that needs to be built between two functions, you want to make certain that that's addressed through your subcommittee, that we need to find the bridge to make certain that those connections take place and that this crack doesn't become a chasm. I believe that's what you're saying. Okay, thanks. I believe it was Louise, and then we're going to move on.
Okay, is this on? Oh, okay, now it's on. That all sounds really great. I'm in full agreement with what you said about the overlap. I think this task force, based upon things that you've said, and the subcommittees are being given Herculean tasks that I don't think are necessarily realistic. This district, I don't know how long the PUSD has been in existence, but it's missed the mark for a lot of years. So I don't want this task force to be a scapegoat for the district not doing what it historically should have been doing in the first place. So we're here to try to be a remedy. And that's a thought I wanted to make, point I wanted to make based upon what you were saying. Okay, now I want to get to the classrooms and the issue of cell phones. We were talking about the jobs of the aides, and I can also include into that teachers. There's a major deficiency in services being provided by the aides, and in some areas, teachers, because cell phones are allowed in the classroom. I am in the classrooms too often where I see people who are on the district's time, who are assigned to students on their cell phones in a whole different other world. They're not paying any attention to the students. I don't know which subcommittee this fits in. That's why I'm making this point. But that's a major loss of efficiency and value to our students. And that's an issue that has to be addressed. These one-on-ones for our special ed students are being paid to assist the students. And if they're not paying attention to the classroom lesson plan from the instructors, or what the students are or are not doing, like keeping organized or actually being able to keep up with what's going on because they're in cyberspace, that's a big issue. And I've also known teachers to do that too. So I don't know which, I want to be on the record for expressing that concern, and I don't know which subcommittee will address that issue, but it's major. It cuts down productivity, being on cell phones, texting, and on the internet cuts down the productivity of these aides drastically. And so it cuts down on the efficiency of the services they're hired to help the students with substantially.
I understand, thank you. We have here, and then Judy, and then Sean, and then we move on.
Yeah, I just showed everybody a picture that was taken at Harry's school at Willard, and this is a picture that just by circumstance was given to my wife. It was just happened to be a small world department. We had no idea that the picture was taken, and an aide had taken the picture and started to circulate the picture, thinking that, well, it was shown to my wife under the guise of, isn't it cute? And he wasn't, the teacher wasn't there that day, and his aide wasn't there. I just wanted to show you how severely broken the system is and how far back we have to go to start to fix this. Because this is not an isolated incident. Stuff like this happens. I mean, I didn't come to the task force meeting on Wednesday night. I was so incensed about this picture that was given to us through a friend. And we had no idea what had happened. We had been told that he had a good day.
Thank you,
So
thank you.
just to show you how severely, what we're dealing with, how far back we have to go.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry, who was next?
Sean?
Sean?
It was to follow what Louise was talking about, though what Mr. Short just described is unacceptable and intolerable. I believe that, and actually what Ms. Bell was talking about is intolerable and unacceptable also, and we were asking, like, where would that fall, what committee? Probably under 2, qualified staffing and hiring, and then the monitoring and compliance, because there are rules in place. There's rules in place for PUSD staff and for non-public agencies that work in the district, especially in regards to communication tools and like their smartphones or whatever. Even that picture being taken is illegal.
The district has, in our trainings as an instructional assistant, repeatedly given instructions to the instructional assistants that they are not to be using their cell phones and texting. Unfortunately, very often it's overlooked by staff, and I mean, I've been in a situation where instructional assistant who is a college student sat and studied her lessons in class as well as texting. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm totally blameless, because every once in a while I use my cell phone. But it's the ongoing repetitive stuff that folks are on their cell phones or they're texting or whatever, just constantly during the day. I mean, in my opinion, and I certainly would do it too, they need to put their cell phones and their whatevers in a box someplace in the office when they come in, and they get them at the end of the day. It's a major problem, and it's not something that administration has not tried to address. It just seems to fall on deaf ears, and I don't know how we resolve it. We, as classified employees, bring it up. We have a classified advisory committee meeting, and we meet with Steve Miller once a month. And it's something that instructional assistants and classified employees discuss with him on a regular basis, because we don't like dealing with it.
Isn't that grounds of termination for termination? And it's also grounds for a major lawsuit. When the district gets hit with one by a parent who makes that observation, then maybe that'll be a way to stop it. But it's a big problem. The aides are not there. They're not present. They're not working with the students, and they're getting paid.
Okay, thank you. And again, I want you all to understand, it's not that what you were going to say is not important, but we do need to move on. The issue of cell phones in the workplace, smartphones, texting, I would love to tell you that it's one that's easily solvable, but there are rules and regulations that are in place. I don't know the contract for this district. I do know that within other districts that it is a performance issue, and when those incidences happen, as long as it's reported, I've seen these work their way up the chain to become more serious offenses. I cannot say that I've actually ever seen anyone terminated for it, but again, I do know that there's virtually every district has a policy in place to address it. And it's not just for folks working in the classroom with students, even though, that takes on a new level and a different level of importance and severity. But it's also lost time for office staff, lost time for, we've got, unfortunately, people who are operating their vehicles, even public agency vehicles, while, using their cell phones. Every now and then, I'm driving down the street and I see a police officer, it's true though. It's true. So it's not something that, I want you to understand, this is not an agency issue, this is a people issue. And people issues often need to be addressed differently than an agency issue. It does not relieve the agency of responsibility, because though it's a people issue, the agency has to develop a plan to address the people issue within their agency. But it unfortunately is, it's a really big problem, and unfortunately it doesn't just live here.
Changing
John?
subject. New subject.
No, that was it.
Oh,
We're on the agenda now.
I have a question about the agenda, actually about the
Okay.
minutes. So can I ask that?
Uh-huh.
I had brought up last Saturday the idea of looking at past lawsuits, and I just wonder if that's being looked into at all.
No, Leonard was working on gathering the information.
As a addendum to that, I'd like to see in that too, like how many private school students are actually in some kind of lawsuit with the school district also over services. Because I've spoken to a lot of private school parents who are, fight with various districts, and including ours, to get their services met at their private school setting. So I just wonder, because that seems like that would be very easily resolved.
So not only do we want to look at PUSD parent complaints that have led to litigation, we also want to look at private
Pasadena
schools.
residents.
Pasadena residents serviced by,
Serviced by private schools, but there is a responsibility for private schools to be served by the district for certain
Okay,
certain
so-
special ed needs.
okay.
So I just would like it to be included in the examination of those lawsuits. It's fairly simple.
Okay,
Because we have, I'm so sorry, we have 63 private schools in Pasadena. And the majority of the students that attend those are affluent white students. So I would like to really see where, if there are lawsuits coming out of those programs.
well, I won't be able to, even though it's in the minutes, that's something that I would want to talk to Leonard about, and obviously I won't be able to do that until probably Monday, Tuesday.
Thank you.
Sharon, and it's not,
But I'm sorry, Mike's hand was up, and
And this is pushing us towards actually going into subcommittees. Sean wasn't here on Wednesday, so I just wanted to, for anybody who wasn't here on Wednesday, wanted to remind them that discussion we talked about, there are resources needed by these subcommittees to do the work that needs to get done. Specific to the lawsuits, I know one of the committees I'm on is asking, re-bringing that question about the lawsuits up. But in a general sense, as we go into our committee work today, be cognizant of what you need information-wise to get the jobs done that we need to get done, and let's ask for it, let's get it on the record, and let's get the information and move forward.
that is actually one of the reasons, someone observed on Wednesday night that Leonard's name did not appear on any of the subcommittees, and that was at my request. It would be very difficult for him to serve as a resource person for you and also have the responsibility of being on a subcommittee because, and I repeat, you were given the opportunity to be on multiple subcommittees. That does not mean that you have been relieved of the responsibility of contributing to every subcommittee that you place your name on. So if you have signed up for more than one subcommittee, you will be responsible for the support contributions needed by your subcommittee. So please, please, everyone has the subcommittee information. I definitely want you to think about that and make certain that this is something that you will be able to do. We have Herman, Ruth, and then we're moving it at 10:30 is the cutoff time.
well, I just wanted to piggyback what Sean Surface was saying regarding the placement of students in private schools. It's not just the residents of PUSD that attend the private schools, but the law states that it's even people outside of our SELPA. If they come into our district, even for the private schools, this SELPA is responsible. So if somebody comes in from Arcadia, La Cañada, wherever, we are responsible. And I think that's why our district gets, we get hit twice, because we have the homes in our Hillside, Sycamores, 5 Acres. So we have all these kids that come in from, they could be coming in from LAUSD, who has a $7 billion budget, but we have to absorb those costs. And maybe there's some politician out there, Chris Holden or somebody, whoever, is going to be heading up to Sacramento that will go to bat for us to make sure that we receive the appropriate funding for the kids that are coming into our district that we're already strapped. We need the funding to do the assessments. I would want to know, how much are we spending on services for the people in the private schools? So we have 63 private schools. How much, let the record reflect that we want to know how much is being spent and broken down, legal, speech, all the services, aids, assessments. I want to know.
We have until 10:30.
Talk in the mic, Monica.
Yeah, you need a mic.
I just wanted to say that I went back and got the CAC parent handbook that we had written a few years back when I was on the CAC. And the documents that are being requested are about 5 pages long. So either you guys are going to give us the information or you're not. The special ed budget breakdown is about a 2-page. I have like about 4 different years. And the one about who's getting AB 602 and who's getting what kind of service is just a few pages of information, easily extracted, even then when you didn't have the more powerful software that you have before. So we need that, as well as the legal fees. It's really hard to develop something when you don't even know how much money you're going to spend on it, because there are ways to do things cheaply. And to me, like even this picture here that he showed, what I found most disturbing about it was the lack of understanding of the person, of the state of the child. The child was not even happy. So, you know, there's no foundation for anything, and we're supposed to develop improvements. You know, what is the basics now? How are people, when people get a student, right, and they have their meetings prior to the first IEP, right? Are they looking at first at what sensory channels are open, how the kid learns? And I don't mean just simply saying he's an auditory or a visual. I mean, because a lot of kids vacillate back and forth between many different ways of learning. But I mean, how are those decisions made and then incorporated in financially prior to the meeting ever occurring? Because when they changed the IDEA, it allowed those meetings to take place. And a lot of parents aren't even aware of that those meetings take place. And I believe there is a financial component, which you have every right to put in there. I mean, to consider, you have to. But at the same time, people don't understand that or how much financially it is. And also privates, the group homes, that was by design a long time ago. Altadena used to be very pretty much an open place. And so a lot of group homes were put there for that reason, and kids were brought in from outside of the area to those group homes. At the time, the funding was different, and so it was actually a lucrative practice to have that. Now the funding has changed. It's expensive to do it. So now we have to find a solution to it, you know what I mean? So having those numbers is really important as well. Thank you.
I think we have 2 minutes. Ruth and then Sean.
Mine may be a natural built-in segue. I just wanted to know, for the benefit of myself and maybe others who were not here on Wednesday for the formation of the subcommittees, how, if there was an overall protocol, by the fact that there are several of us that are interested in multiple committees, if the structure is going to be within the context of our meetings, or if we are to meet outside, or just, so if you can describe that when we transition, that'd be
I
great.
will. Thank you. Sean.
I've thought about this question in my head many times. I wonder if this district wants to rethink, or this task force even wants to look at whether Pasadena should remain its own SELPA or join the West San Gabriel Valley SELPA again. Purely because of financial, and not something that we should have an answer to right now. I'm just throwing that out there. The other thing in 10 seconds is, there were 78 pink slips given a couple days ago, and I just wonder how many of those were special ed teachers.
A lot. There's a list. There are a lot of special ed teachers and other special ed resources on that list, which I found problematic.
Which goes right back to what Mr. Costello was saying in regards to, you might have a great teacher, and that great teacher is having a really good success all year long, and then they leave, and then the whole program is gone.
Can I clear up one point there?
You got 1 minute.
The resource teachers that were listed on that list are actually resource teachers for curriculum. They are not special ed resource teachers. So they are actually Title I, they're general education teachers. Yes.
But were
And
they
so just
listed under special ed? Were they? I'm not
no,
certain.
no, they are listed under general ed, and that's been some of the confusion that's been going on, is that it's people thought, oh my gosh, they're cutting, what is it, 30 30 special ed teachers, and it's not 20.
But there's still a
It's-
lot of special ed teachers being cut.
You've got 15 seconds.
Okay, I just want to make a point. When the SELPers were formed, since I'm a dinosaur, I was around then, West San Gabriel Valley SELPA didn't want Pasadena, and neither did Foothills SELPA because of the population of kids. So they truly were not included for that reason back in the early 80s, late 70s.
You mean racism or segregation? Is that what you?
I don't think it had anything to do with it. It was just the issues of the population that was going to have to be dealt with.
I want to remind everyone, if you have not signed in, I'm passing the clipboard down to those that I know who probably had not had an opportunity. If you have not signed in, please do so. I'm going to move the sign-in sheet to the table over here once that's done. And we are going to, is this a question?
I think it has to do with the agenda. I want some clarification. This is the email that Leonard sent out, dated Thursday, the 15th, and he said, hello, everyone. For those of you who missed the March 14th task force, we have additional dates, but the team will discuss them further this Saturday because Sharon and I had a proposal for an alternative. If we do want to present at the May 8th Board of Education meeting, all documents have to be submitted by April 23rd. So that's our target date. And then he also talked about packets. So is this part of the agenda discussion we're going to have?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Anyone else? Good. It is now 10:30. We've actually been discussing minutes and other items for approximately an hour. And so I'm going to ask, does the group want to take a 5-minute break right now? Okay. According to the clock there, it's about 10:32. At 10:40, I need everyone back in the room in your chairs. 10:40 by the clock on the wall.
right? No pictures.
The document that's being passed around right now, we are not going to use immediately, so please do not ask any questions about it just yet. We are not going to use it immediately.
You knew that was gonna happen. You knew it.
And I knew it was going to be him. My gosh.
Tim had his hand up, I just spoke out.
Oh, man.
You chose that.
That's interagency collaboration.
Yeah, they're the same. The extras, if you'll just shift right back this way, that would be great. So again, we're not going to use this like immediately. What I want to do is I want to do just a brief recap of our meeting on Wednesday night. I know that we don't have the minutes, but what I've tried to explain that the email that I sent yesterday with the subcommittee members and the information that's on that document is pretty much the recap of the meeting. So I want to just walk through that again. The meeting essentially opened with, we talked about the charge that was given to us by the board. We went through that again, just in case there was someone who was not here last Saturday. We talked about the kind of point of view or the perspective that the task force wants to take with regards to the charge, that we want to really look forward on this. And then we put up chart paper because we wanted people to be able to self-select the subcommittee that they would like to be a part of. Oh, you're here. Hi.
And I'm drenching wet.
Oh, we're sorry. There's coffee to warm you up. She's like, I've got it. She's probably looking for, to want to be two-fisted on this, 2 hands, 2 cups of coffee.
Very chic. I think it's very thoughtful.
I can just see, the minutes. Sean compliments hair. Wait, but with the British accent.
It's spelled with an O-N-E.
Okay, so everyone was given an opportunity to self-select the subcommittee that they wanted to participate in. And there was a warning that I gave that I know that many people have different passions about a number of different areas. But the warning was that by listing your name with the subcommittee, that those folks that you share that subcommittee with are going to look to you for your contribution and for your support. So I didn't want anyone to overburden themselves. And so at the end of the evening, I was glad to see that there was representation for every area, but I also want to make certain that people are giving consideration, that all task force members are giving consideration. If you are a member of more than 3 subcommittees, I really want you to rethink which ones you really want to work with. Because even though, and as I move into this, I want to explain that this is not going to be a Hudson Avenue, only a Hudson Avenue-based activity. There's so much work that has to be done to develop the action plans that it can't all be done sitting in this room, being face-to-face with one another. So that's where my attempt at creating a space with Google Docs for the subcommittees to work took place. Unfortunately, Google says that I met my sharing limit. I didn't know that I had shared that much, but I'm going to give it a go again. So I was able to get, I believe, 5, maybe 6 of the documents shared, but the others were not. So again, I'm going to just try it again because I think that would be helpful. In that process, you will notice that I essentially gave everyone the opportunity to see all of the other documents. Not necessarily to make a contribution at this point, and not to make a contribution at this point, but to be able to see how other subcommittees are working, the progress that they're making. And quite honestly, if a subcommittee comes up with a good idea, feel free, use it. We don't need to reinvent the wheel here. Quite honestly, we don't have the time to reinvent the wheel. So something may inspire a subcommittee. Someone may say, hey, you know what? That's something I think that we need to address, we didn't consider. So you have the opportunity to view the other subcommittees' work. I asked people to forward their subcommittee choices to me via email if they were not here on Wednesday night. I want to thank those of you who have come to me today to give me your information. So the subcommittee list will be updated and then sent out to the group again. There were some email addresses that had been left off. So we have Jean's email now added. We have Tony's email addresses added. And there was one other person. Oh, Nita Kramer. That email address has been added.
I'm still not in here, guys, and I know Leanne is not also, so.
You're not?
No,
Okay.
I'm getting it forwarded from other people.
It is quite possible then that when your your address was put in, maybe there was something off with the spelling. So before we leave today, please, 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 my agenda is here. Just write your name on the agenda, and then that will be the key to me to go back and check the list. Because I actually had to type in all the names just last night, and unfortunately, Sean, I'm sorry I didn't notice that yours wasn't there. A little bleary-eyed by 11, so, and I hadn't been drinking. Yes. No, I don't think coconut water counts. No.
They say that really affects the brain really well. So.
High in potassium. Yes.
I'm just looking at the different subcommittee groups, and I added myself to 3, but one is the evidence-based practices and assessments, and there's a lot of good people on that committee already, but if we could have some additional teachers on that committee, it would be really helpful, like Kathy.
I haven't signed up, and I definitely have a passion for that area.
And I was hoping, Carol, that you might also, because these are the things that are going on in classrooms on a daily basis. So I'm not saying, and Carol Higa, if you're able to assist with that also, because you have the preschool background for evidence-based practices, and of course, much more, but just
And
thought
of
I'd
course,
throw
there's
out
no
there.
pressure.
Kind of parent-heavy.
Okay, so what I want you to do is at the end of the meeting, if you are considering revising your subcommittee memberships, please, please, please let me know. Either write it. It would probably be easier for you to write it on the document that you have with your name on it and indicate where you want to move to. That would be helpful. Or have a conversation with me so that at least it's documented. And for those whose names I still don't have, for instance, I don't have your selections, Sean. I don't have yours. So we can make those. I see your hand, Louise, but I'm not done. So that we can make certain that, again, the membership list is captured so that you know who you are communicating with. I encourage you to create a distribution list for your subcommittee. The one thing that each subcommittee needs to do, and this is immediately, each subcommittee needs to identify a subcommittee lead. A subcommittee lead. That information I will need fairly quickly. I would say by Wednesday evening. I need to know who each subcommittee lead is.
Is that the 22nd? 3/22?
21st.
21st, okay.
Yeah. So again, I need to know who each subcommittee lead is. Bless you. The instructions that I gave on Wednesday night. Each subcommittee is to develop SMART objectives for each recommendation that falls under their topic. And then I provided the consolidated audit recommendations table. Again, as a facilitator, documenting processes so that when the group comes together is my contribution to help to move you forward so that you don't have to work quite as hard. Your work is going to be hard enough. So wherever I can support you by providing a consolidated something or a table that summarizes or simplifies process for you, I will make every attempt to do so. Part of the responsibility is to develop a list of barriers/obstacles, if there are any, for each SMART objective. And this is where this blank sheet that I gave you is going to come in.
Where are you reading from, Sharon?
Yes. And then also, subcommittee members need to communicate with one another to determine the resources needed. I know that there are a number of items that are coming up, and some are driven by recent events. It is important that any additional items that come up, any recent events, you are able to find a home for them within one of the 11 areas that we have already identified. If it doesn't fit one of those 11 areas, we may need to parking lot it because already the task is pretty big. It was described by Louise as Herculean, and the fact is, it is. It is. So we need to work within what we have already agreed upon, knowing that we still haven't hit everything. But you did your very best by creating these broad topics that hopefully things can fit within. If they do not, again, you bring it to the task force. We agree that it's going to be a parking lot item so that it can come up in some way and have a place to live for further communication. The optimal environment list was shared with you. That, again, was a list just to inspire you. Those were kind of best practices, optimal things that the task force said, we'd like to see. We believe should be a part of or a characteristic or attribute of. So it was just to inspire you, kind of a jumping off list. Feel free to use those. Every group, every subcommittee is not going to have an incredibly long list of SMART objectives because you may be able to cover something quite a bit with one very good SMART objective, and then the plans underneath may be the place where you spend more time. Okay, the extras, did they come back? The blank sheet that I passed around? Thank you. Garrett was sitting on them. We'll blame him. All right. Important dates to remember. March 14th, subcommittees were formed. We have meetings scheduled today, March 21st. And that is the last one that's scheduled, is Wednesday, March 21st. The dates that I need you specifically to be aware of are April 14th, 18th, and 23rd. April 14th is an opportunity, April 14th and 18th are opportunities for the subcommittees to bring their work to the task force so that we can walk through your objectives with you. And again, we're a team. We're supporting each other, and we want to make certain that all of us puts our best foot forward. There's a lot that has to go into this. So what we want to do using those 14th and 18th dates is to help each other to refine our documents. And then also, if there's something that we believe should be contributed, make that contribution. Does that mean that the subcommittee has to incorporate what you suggest? No, because chances are what you are sharing is probably just probably restating what they've already considered. But if there's something that they haven't thought of, certainly it's an opportunity for it to come forward. So the 14th and 18th are going to be spent on our internal review before we submit to the board. Ruth Ann.
Should not the board meeting of May 8th also be on special focus so that we can all plan to attend, or is that necessary?
I would say it's up to the task force to determine, each member if they want to attend. But our documents absolutely have to be ready. I don't want to sound too blunt, but April 23rd, my work is done.
So you say.
It's like the mafia, they just drag you back in.
That's right.
My goal is to make certain as we can be, that your documents are as complete as possible by that April 23rd date. Otherwise, we've missed our deadline. And if we miss that deadline, we miss the opportunity to have some impact on what happens when school opens in the fall. So you need to be aware, if we push it back any further, we miss the opportunity to create some impact by fall. Yes, two hands. Actually, Costello and then Louise.
So Dr. McDonald at the last meeting answered the question that we need to have, to make an impact by next school year, beginning of next school year, we need to have things in place by May 8th. So I don't think pushing it back is an option. I think we have to push forward with May 8th. That said, looking at this calendar, I'm a little concerned in the 3-week gap between March 21st and April 14th. Acknowledging that we do have spring break, coming back on April 14th only leaves less than 10 days to, if there's concern or problems that we identify on April 14th, we don't have enough time, in my opinion, to react necessarily to make that April 23rd cutoff date. So what I would propose is, doesn't have to be a 3-hour meeting, but on March 28th, a couple days before, if that could be a good check-in point to look at where everybody's at, all the committees are at, so that we can get some initial input and help it before then.
Louise.
Excellent point. Along the line of what I was thinking. Also, I don't know if we all want to think in terms of our subcommittees using Skype or GoToMeeting, because it may not be convenient for us all to meet at some other physical location. But the point I wanted to make also is, I see an already inherent problem with how this task force was thrown together. There isn't enough parent representation. In my opinion, there should be a parent on every last one of these subcommittees. I don't know how I'm going to possibly be able to be on transition, which is imperative, and it's a major area that the district falls very short on, and extended school year, which I'm very passionate about also. But with the extended school year, I know that plans are already being made for the extended school year. You got one parent, 2 district people. I thought the extended school year last year was, well, I can't say anything nice about it, but it didn't serve its purpose. It didn't benefit the students. In my opinion, it benefited paid staff, but the students didn't benefit from it. Classes were supposed to start at 8. They started at about 9:30 maybe. And then I think they got out at noon, which sort of kind of meant 11:30. But those plans are already being made for this year's extended school year. I don't think I'm going to have ample opportunity because I always get a lot of pushback and resistance from PUSD staff when I'm asking questions. I don't think I'm going to have ample time to really be able to address vastly improving and making effective the extended school year. I would need to have transportation information. That's always usually the last thing we get. I would need to know schedules, etc. So I sort of feel like I'm being placated by being on this task force, but I don't really think there's a whole lot I can do, period.
Okay. Thank you. Tony?
I'm looking at this and I agree, this is a very overwhelming task. And I'm still looking at this and wondering if there's a better way that we can consolidate the grouping. I still think that if you look at 11 groups, if we could narrow this down by combining and break it down to 7, 8, I certainly think that it would be helpful for everyone. As I see my name on a lot because there's a lot of things that I thought were very important. And I do believe that there are, that there's a lot of cross information that would be useful. So I'm just, again, wondering if we could take one more look at this and see if there's a way to start combining. And that might also help with some of the issues that we're looking at right now.
Mike Costello will tell you I am wide open to that.
You sure?
We started with 34. We're down to 11. I think that one of the reasons I put it in this form, and also, if you recall, the table so that you could see where the X's fell in similar places was because some of that is possible. Now, I saw a hand here and then Mike.
The one thing I keep hearing over and over again is we have a deadline and we have to meet it. And I think it would be helpful for this committee if we realize that just because we have a first deadline doesn't mean it's an ending. I mean, if we take this as a starting point and that this is a place where, unlike the former studies, they came in, they did a study, they wrote a report, they handed it in, and they were done. They left. This time you have people who are all parts of our community, all stakeholders in our organization. There's no reason the work we're doing has to stop, especially if we need to adjust things and change things and make new recommendations. And so we can use this as a starting place. And if we take that to heart and say, this is our starting place, it might make it less of a daunting task because then we don't have to get it perfect right now. We just have to get ourselves started on the right direction because part of our recommendation could be that this type of committee continue to meet and continue to provide suggestions to the district.
Yes.
I agree with everything people are saying. Thank you, Jim, for letting us exhale a little bit because I agree with you that one of our recommendations, a 12th subject here would be next steps. And so one of the recommendations that we have to include as part of our board presentation on May 8th is whatever those next steps are going to be. Again, from accountability loop to keep things moving forward to make sure that this doesn't follow the path of previous audits and recommendations. Number two, I agree with what Tony says in the sense that, yes, there's a lot of work to be done. It is Herculean. The flip side is all of these things are important. And so when we group them together, we lose focus by making them more broad. So what Ruth and I did during the break was there were 6 things she wanted to be a part of. We looked at how the groups were being formed and what she could really make the most input on, and we narrowed it down to 3. So I think as a starting point, rather than for those of us who are well beyond 3, let's see where our top 3 things are. Let's see where those committees break out. And that was my point in terms of coming back on the 28th, was it allows each of us, even though you have 6 areas that are really important to you, you're only on 3 committees, you can still have an input time well in advance so that we can all move forward. And then in terms of Louise, yes, many more people should be part of this and should be part of these committees. I know my intention is, during this break between now and then, we're all representatives of various stakeholders. And so I'm going to make sure that all of these SMART objectives go out to as many different parents as possible so that I can then bring them back and inform others. I will ask everybody to go to your particular stakeholders, whether it's community members, special education teachers, outreach to the general education teachers, and get as much input as we have so that when we come back on March 28th and then, hopefully March 28th and then April 14th, we can be as inclusive as possible, but still acknowledging Jim's point that we don't have to be finished. We just need to make this first report as great as we can and create the steps for moving forward after that.
I actually shared, first of all, we have Monica, was there a hand here? Sean, and then, I'm sorry, Kathy Herman. One of the things that I shared while having a conversation in the parking lot on Wednesday night is you can create SMART objectives that give this life and sustain the life. Meaning, one example was creating a SMART objective that X report will be reviewed and recommendations made by, let's say, July 2012. Well, that goes beyond our meeting date, but it still puts that goal out there that this needs to be done, and puts it in the hands of a group to take care of. But this is not, April 23rd is not a stop. It's not a stop. It's a milestone. It's a place for us to put the work that has been done so far to be a representation of the conversations that have taken place already, the priorities that have already been stated and established by the task force, to document those conversations and push those forward. We cannot operate kind of in the background and not really demonstrate the progress that has been made. And that is what this first date is about. One of the reasons it is the most challenging is because it really will be the first that we put forward. So please do not think that it is a stopping point, but it is a point that's very important for the task force, because if the task force cannot demonstrate, look, these are recommendations that we have, these are priorities that we've identified, because you did identify the priorities on the document, the prioritized audit recommendations. We can certainly review that. We can also discuss the potential to consolidate some of the remaining categories. My hope, and again, I always say I don't want to assert my opinion, but my hope is that you will take a second look at consolidating some of the categories even further. And just as under, which one was it? Every student, every school, there's like 5 sub-areas that we have that lives under that category. The same could be done with other categories. It will not reduce or lessen the importance of them, but it will make this more manageable, and people won't feel the need to spread themselves so thinly. Monica, Sean.
I just want to say that part of the problem is that we don't have the information that we need to even come up with that's why it seems so overwhelming. I personally don't see this as overwhelming, because I've seen the information to get this done previously on several occasions. But I'm just thinking, like, if I was a parent, I would not even know where to start on some of this, because I wouldn't even understand the connection between a board policy and what is decided at the local plan level versus at the SELPA level, the state and the federal. I wouldn't even understand that I have no control over certain aspects of it, so I'm wasting my time. Louise is correct that extended school year and transition are very much connected areas, actually, because if the board policy is the purpose of extended school years that the kids don't lose skills that they had developed during the year and to maintain a certain level, then and then yet they don't budget enough money to do that, you understand, or to do it appropriately, then you would need to have that information, because then what you would decide to do about it would be different. In addition, if, for one thing, we had always requested that they get an on-staff attorney, just one, to, lower the budget on having to have all these different groups that they consult on different problems. Because as of right now, what they do is they just refer to different attorneys' issues. That could cut out a lot of money right there. Under a curriculum in classroom, if there's no basis for the curriculum, like for instance, if everyone is in an agreement that we need to understand the sensory challenges of a student and have a methodology for doing that, then it's very overwhelming to decide on just some curriculum based on, evidence-based curriculum based on what? You understand what I'm saying? I mean, we really need some information on what the board and what the director has in mind. I've not seen the director here. That's concerning to me. I would think the director of special ed would be here some of the time to give us some information that way. They do have manuals of how they have their staff do certain items or address certain issues. We don't even have that manual. I have an old one, but I don't have the new one. I would think, Pam, there's a newer one.
Well, in fact,
Scary.
this was the
Right.
point that was made earlier, that the subcommittees need to create list of the resources that you're requesting. Hearing you, I need I'm a visual learner.
Me too.
I can hear you, but to not have the information so that I can
write you a list.
so that I can then support the subcommittee going forward. Let's take a step back. A lot of people are actually putting forward objectives as they're speaking. That's wonderful. Take it to the subcommittee.
Mm-hmm.
Stop bringing it to the open group. Take it to the subcommittee. That will save us a lot of time there. That's the appropriate group to handle it right now, is to forward channel your recommendations to the subcommittee. Because one of the reasons subcommittees were formed is that we knew that time was going to be nibbled away by us trying to bring these various things to the open table.
Right.
So your recommendations need to be taken to that particular subcommittee.
But just following up on what you were saying, this is an open meeting. It's being televised per the Brown Act. The subcommittee meetings are being held in secrecy. I think we need to discuss
Okay, secrecy?
whatever. There is non-public,
But
it doesn't, it's
your
not going.
work will still be public. You still have to share publicly what you work on.
We may, but
No,
we're.
you do.
Well, but we only have X amount of time. And for me to state, and for Monica to state, that we don't even have the tools that we need to go into subcommittee, but we're being told, go into subcommittee without the tools that you need, and, be like Midas and produce gold. I'm sorry.
So you're
And I'm not a
saying-
cynic, but I have been in this district since 2001, and I don't want to see this as another attempt to hold the PUSD board and the district accountable for actually educating our special education students and of course, we're concerned about general ed and all students. So I do have concerns about being told to take our concerns to the subcommittees, which will not be public meetings. And I already know I'm not gonna have the resources that I need at those meetings.
Okay, I think that this is one of those places where there's a gap that perhaps we're not all understanding. First of all, everything that this task force does becomes public. Your documents, though you may have your subcommittee meetings via email, online, your documents become public. My statement to share it, I didn't say take it, share it with the appropriate subcommittee is because if each of us sits here and says, well, I think that this is what we should do, well, I think that this is what we should do, we are wasting time. There is a subcommittee that has that responsibility of looking at and addressing that particular area. My statement is share it with the group that has that responsibility. If I am a policeman and you are a fireman, then the person who comes to me and says my house is on fire, I'm going to send to you because you're the person with the equipment. You wouldn't have the equipment if once you made the decision to become a fireman, you didn't do what was necessary to acquire those skills. Each subcommittee is being asked to determine the resources that they need. There is no assumption that you have those resources already. That's one of your first tasks, to identify, it's in the instructions, to identify the resources that you need.
And then chain backwards? And then chain back?
Yeah. Yeah. Because it needs to be documented what you need. Saying it here in open isn't going to get you the resources that you need. That's right. There are some resources that may need to be created. There may be reports that need to be repurposed, reformatted, information extracted so that it can be shared. A number of the reports were designed for a particular purpose, and so information actually has to be extracted in order for it to be shared. At this point, thank you, Sean.
Mr. Costello would like to respond, or she took it. So I'm going to jump off onto something else. And I have to start with an apology because I think this question's been answered. But looking at the recommendations, this is where we got, excuse me, let me say it a different way. The information that we're working on for our objectives and our areas all came from the audits, right? Yes. And so one of the things that I've noticed is that there is one area that's really not being met so well, and that is, and you can throw it into an area like evidence-based practices, but it's the social emotional development of our kids. And there's one area in the recommendations which is social skills, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time at all on this, except I'm very concerned that there are two areas or sub-areas under social emotional that we're really missing that are at the forefront of problems these days. One is child abuse, and secondly is bullying. And I really believe that whatever committee takes that on, that needs to be part of our discussion before May 8th, because we need to put something into place in the fall that's going to start somewhat of an awareness around child abuse and somewhat of a prevention and reactiveness around our bullying, because many of our children are bullied in schools,
I know we want
general ed and special education.
and classroom.
You need to turn the.
Herman.
Thank you. We were talking about and that's a great recommendation, Sean, to make sure that doesn't fall through the gaps. Regarding the list of committees and the members of the committees, may I suggest that a master list, and actually I got an extra copy somehow. I think, Jim, you left one and then I grabbed one. But may I suggest we make a master, and leave it here so everybody could see instead of submitting to you the committees. I think it's important that all of us could walk up to the table and see who's removed themselves from a list and who's added themselves, so that we can make sure there's an appropriate balance at each committee. So that if I removed, I think I signed up for 5. I saw, Tony, you signed up for 6. I saw Judy, McKinley, you're an 8. You must have a staff working with you.
Judy is a force to be reckoned with.
So anyways, and then I saw Louise Bell on one committee, which.
I wasn't here
Yeah,
last
she
week. I'm
wasn't
going
here.
to add myself to transition.
So, but I think the parents, we've got to make sure, obviously, there's appropriate parent representation in each committee. And then I started seeing some of the duplicate, the committees that we could fold in. As everybody was talking, I saw that, 4 of the 5 in the evidence-based assessments and practices are also in the curriculum classroom. And those, even though they're separate, they kind of overlap a little bit. So, we could, if we're already meeting to talk about assessments, evidence-based, we could also throw in, we could extend the conversation into curriculum in the classroom. I also saw that Judy and Louise are, you're in the extended school day, school year, I'm sorry. Maybe we need a extended school day too. That's an idea. Extended school year, and also transition, because I see extended school year, really, that the big problem is transition, right? We don't, the kids, we don't know until the morning of the day, of the first day of extended school year, if the bus is actually going to arrive. There's a lot of transition issues and problems, and I see that, that committee, the issues that are going to be brought up in transition will definitely help Pam, help you out in.
That's not the purpose of the.
I'm sorry.
That is not the purpose of the.
But ESY needs to be in place, and it has a more immediate need because it's like tomorrow, right? We're almost there. It needs to be in place. It can't be, I think it's important that if there are not, if there's people that want to start, say teachers, they want to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, but the kids maybe want to start at 9:30. Maybe it's better for the kids to start at 9:30. Are we doing it for the teachers, this extended school year, or are we doing it for the kids? That means if you got to be at school at 8 in the morning, the bus has to pick up the kid at 6:30, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. We need to make sure that what we're doing, the decisions that we're making, are for the kids, not to keep saying. And if somebody in our district doesn't want to do the extended school year, fine. We hire somebody outside the school district. I'm sure other people will work just like we do. I'd like to finish my comment. Just like we have right now, the district pays, if you don't know, they pay supplemental educational services to people outside the school district. They pay somebody $55 an hour, sometimes $70 an hour, depending on who gets the service. So if we're already doing that, we got to make sure that we are putting everything in place so that if somebody in our district doesn't want to do some of these services, that we extend it out to somebody else. So anyways, all right, I know I bounced around again, but I threw 2 of the committees out there that could fold into, and there's a third one. I think the staffing and hiring, I see overlap with administration. And I think that if there is a thought of trying to combine some of these groups, for the sake of, having people involved in more than 3 of the committees or saving time for everybody, that maybe we can keep the independence of the committee, but in terms of what the goal is for each of the committees, but allowing them to meet, and then if somebody, say, Ms. Go didn't want to participate in the curriculum in classroom because she didn't sign up for that, that's okay, she could leave at the end of that committee, she could leave, and at least have, the rest of the 4 or 5 members are already there.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do, because I absolutely believe that there's some refining that can be done. I absolutely believe that. Now, what that is going to require are several things. One, it's going to require an open mind. 2, less commentary. Open mind, less commentary. Open mind, less commentary. Say it with me. Open mind, less commentary. One more time as a group. Open mind, less commentary. We have 11 categories. By combining 2, it does not mean that anything takes on less importance. It simply means that you're finding one that
Less side commentary, too.
it you've taken on the
Nobody's
bad
going to
word.
quiet me, so if I have to do
Herman.
I'll be heard no matter what.
Okay. Again, I want you
Sharon,
to.
I have to say this. Herman's a parent, and I'm a parent, and I didn't go along with I go along with the open mind, but I don't go along with the less commentary. Everybody around here is getting a paycheck from the district except the parents. And I know everybody has the best intentions, but I do think our children have been underserved. I would have liked to have seen a parent on every last one of these task force. So my mind is open, but I can't keep my mouth closed if I think keeping my mouth closed is going to be harmful to my 2 special education students, and it's not going to bring about the changes that this task force has been established for.
Duly noted.
I think part of
Just to clarify, none of us are being paid to be here.
No.
This is
No,
our,
we
our
know.
passion.
Duly
We know that you're
noted.
Have a
not. We know you're
paycheck
not being
coming from
paid,
the
but you
district.
are on the
Noted.
payroll. You are on the payroll. There's
Duly
who is not
noted.
getting paid by the school district? Raise your hand. Is it going to be 4
Actually-
parents, 5
actually-
parents? No, you're getting. But you're on this. Let me pull up how much you make, Pam
Hello,
Mellon. Let me
everyone.
Can I ask?
see. You want me to
Herman.
make? I mean, it's public information.
Let me ask a question.
Hello,
'cause
everyone.
No, see, that's where you guys mince words,
No,
and you are
Herman.
always trying to deflect
Herman,
the truth.
You're now out of place. The point is, are we going to work on refining the categories a little more? That way, we can get to that place where we have representation, at least an increased amount of representation. However, if the categories remain at 11, it's obvious we do not have 11 parents. It is obvious we do not have 11 parents. So I want you to take a few minutes, make some notes on the sheet that you have, identify some possibilities for consolidation. Talk amongst yourselves if you need to. Identify some opportunities. Again, 1, it does not mean that an area takes on less importance. It simply means that there is a great enough relationship between some items for them to be worked on by the same group of people. That is what we're looking for.
Are you ready for recommendations?
Not yet.
Okay.
I really want people to think this through.
Could I just quickly, just a little announcement? We're passing around a list of documents that you feel that you might require in order to do your action plan.
The documents, again, just pause on the documents at this moment. Just take a pause on the documents for right now. Because No, this is not a break. This is a time for you to reflect on the list and try to refine it. I did not say we had a break.
I know, but we can't, some of us can't reflect on the list without the resources. I'm just gonna tell you the truth.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing.
My cons-
I'm sorry.
I feel that we're moving back away from Jim's initial comment about we're feeling the pressure on us to solve the world's crisis right now. And we're not going to be able to take a step forward until we at least get to a place where we have a starting point. So while I acknowledge that resources are needed, Monica, no one is a bigger, Sharon and I have had many conversations about the resources that are necessary to get this done. I agree about everything. Herman, Louise, I'm with you. I'm a fellow parent. I'm concerned that we're going to hit 1 o'clock today and make no movement from where we were on Wednesday, which further puts us under more stress and more pressure. So I would hope that we can very quickly get to a place where we can actually start, break into subcommittees, imperfect, acknowledged, imperfect subcommittees, but at least come back and reconvene at 12:40, whatever. And then once we have a starting point, we can breathe a little bit. We can say, okay, this is all clearer now. It's a little bit more finite. Let's recategorize. Let's whatever. Let's get this list on paper so that it's public record. No one's hiding anything. And then when we come back on Wednesday, we can start at 6 o'clock or whenever we start on Wednesday and start doing good work for the students.
Sean?
I can't attend Wednesday because I'm too far away, but is there any way to electronically attend?
If you'll have your laptop with you, I'm sure. There's a possibility of Skyping with someone.
I know Leanne will be here, so I could Skype into her computer.
Yeah. Yeah. I would recommend that.
What about the people that are taping it?
They're just recording. It's not live.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know about their capability of actually sending it out in that way. I don't know what their production capabilities are.
Did you say these meetings are not streamed live?
Oh, yeah, it's out.
They're streaming them live on the internet, they're just not going out over cable television.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it
we
is going out on the internet.
Okay.
Yeah, but the possibility for two-way, you could just send your comments. Thank you,
And I gave
Peter.
you the address. We'll post the address for everyone. Yes, it is. But we'll just please check the webpage. It's the PUSD webpage /SETF. And I'm told, and please go and check tonight. If everyone goes and checks, and just email me if you don't find the past meetings. We'll.
PUSD.com/SETF.
There it is.
Again, it's on the bottom of the minutes.
And just if we could all check, if anyone, can't find them, just email
Is
me
it
and
highlighted?
I will personally take responsibility for tracking them down.
Okay, but the two-way communication possibility, Sean, then you could just email your question or what have you to someone that you know that will be there.
At the last meeting, I had asked about EDI, and there was a little bit of, I was having a little bit of confusion because I think that we were having two different discussions, the person that I was talking to. On the ideal classroom workup sheet that was done, there was something that discussed explicit direct instruction.
Yeah, I need us to, though, wrap up one thing before we move on to that, because I remember you asked the question, but I want to wrap up this before moving on.
Not a problem.
Give it the
Consolidation.
full attention that it deserves, the full amount of time that it deserves. Okay. One more minute. How are we doing? Progress? Okay.
The reason I was asking was that in professional development and curriculum and classroom, there would be a lot of overlap. And something like when we're discussing strategies such as RTI and then explicit direct instruction, these one, they have to go hand in hand because there has to be the opportunity to utilize this through professional development and and because it is going to, it would ultimately be delivered in the classroom, in whatever classroom model is decided,
Good
which is
point.
why I was bringing that up.
Good point. Okay, how are we doing? All right. Didn't have time to write all 11.
Sorry I said anything about it. Combining. I just wanted to start. I'm available that week off. I'm available. I have that whole week off. So, in April. I am available for discussion, to sit down and read whatever on this group, whatever is helpful. I just wanted to let you know that I've got availability, because that's 3 weeks is a lot of, it is a big window. We'll come back. Now, I'm available that date as well, I believe. I have to look at my calendar, but.
Sure.
Committees?
This is Phil.
Okay. First hand for suggestion. Don.
Okay, I'm thinking marrying qualified staffing and hiring with professional development.
I second that, but let's put it under administration, so
Yeah,
the three.
I wrote down we could do all three.
Great.
But
I would-
it's, you know,
One at a time. Qualified staffing and hiring. Sorry, hold on a moment. Joyce.
Yes, I second that, but I would like to propose change the name to recruitment and retention of qualified staff.
recruitment and,
Recruitment and retention of qualified staff.
That sounds fine to me.
Yes.
I think combining the hiring and the administrating is good. I'm concerned about putting professional development in that area.
I agree,
Well,
because,
generally, professional development is a part of retention efforts.
okay, but if you think about it in this way, in 2012, somebody could be highly qualified, and in 2014, be behind in the times. So you can hire somebody who is qualified, but they have to continually have professional development to remain quality.
that's why it would be together.
Oh,
That's
well,
the
I don't-
reason that it would be together.
It's a reason, yeah.
I
But
also think, though, professional development and collaboration, those combined would do a lot more to, not a lot more, but would be equally effective in terms of, at every school, getting every staff on the same page moving forward.
And we had a similar conversation about combining those as well, too, but in light of some of the concerns that have been raised throughout our meetings and the picture you showed today, too, we kind of thought maybe professional development should stay its own piece, too. But we had the similar conversation, so.
Decision time. What is it going to be?
I think you need to make the decision thinking about who would be monitoring that. So HR would be monitoring that, and are they going to be able to monitor professional development also? They might.
In actuality, I think the special ed department actually is responsible for the professional development in regards to special ed issues, both with certificated staff and classified staff.
It's also in the
Just wearing
contract.
my compliance hat. I always like someone outside my department to monitor me and tell me if I'm doing a good job. So I'm very comfortable with it resting in HR. Oh, trust me, I get comments all the time.
But what I,
But
what I was going to say is that information regarding credentialing and required professional development generally lives with HR.
But to put it forward. and
It also gives
it's easy to
you,
place.
it also gives you a compliance aspect and an accountability piece because it's being done by outside your department. Absolutely, the monitoring thereof. If I have to show my professional development, if it's being tracked by an HR department, the district I came from actually tracked all trainings online, and it was all through the HR department, so that all training was taken care of. So at any time, you could look online and say, okay, who's had NCPI? Have all my staff had NCPI? Have they all been trained in G-tube feeding? Have they all been trained in using a lift? Have they all been trained in community-based instruction? Have my staff, I mean, so there were whole lists of things that were online and trained through HR.
But
But we
Jim,
haven't
what you
even
just
dis-
mentioned was completely different than what Garrett would have at his school. He would not have people with feeding tubes. He would not have people with Hoyer lifts. Because,
But he might.
Because
Might.
currently.
But he might, under,
Can I just finish what I'm thinking? Thank you. So you, as a principal, make the decisions right now where your staff needs to be trained, and he, as a principal, makes a decision about where his staff needs to be trained.
That might be a board
Therefore,
policy.
it's really coming from site-based, not from HR.
and what I'm suggesting to the committee is that if that's centralized, you have a centralized conversation about what trainings are needed, especially if you're talking about every student, every school. You need a district vision, not a site vision.
That's a board policy level decision.
For this task force, I think ultimately all of these 11 things interrelate to everything
Yeah,
else.
they do.
So we can nuance and combine everything into one. But in terms of what we need to do to put forward, I'm fine at the end of the day that HR or whomever is responsible for monitoring professional development. But in terms of us putting specific recommendations in place, I think professional development needs to be a separate category.
No, that's what I thought we were doing under professional development.
Well, there's a conversation going on right now. I want to go back to Don's original recommendation, which was, Don?
Yeah, okay, if you just take away, if it just read qualified staffing, right, didn't say anything about hiring, staffing, meaning the active role of staffing would mean encompassing the development of the staff who are professionals. So, I mean, I just kind of see it being like a no-brainer as far as marrying it. Nothing is being taken away, and we're not even talking about implementation here. We're talking about just common sense in marrying these titles. So nothing is going to be lost in marrying the title. It's just going to be condensed so it can be crystallized and focused more specifically with one group as opposed to fragmented. And that's, in my opinion, that's how things are going to get lost, is if things are fragmented and it's so splintered that there's more of a possibility. And if you are more specific about a larger grouped topic, then I think there's more of the possibility things can get handled more specifically. That's just my proposal. So, I mean, the HR thing, all that other stuff is way down the road. I mean, I understand that it has to be taken into consideration, but for our purposes here right now, on March 17th, 2012, at 10 to 12, I'm just putting it out there. I think qualified staffing, professional development could be married as one.
Judy?
Basically, human resources is part of administration, so
Well, okay, this is the point that I was going to make. If you stop trying to use the terms that we've already put forward, we open our mind a little bit, and we actually refer to that whole area as administration, encompass HR functions, encompass professional development, encompass, I'm sorry, what was that other area? staffing and hiring, as well as recruitment, I think you get a pretty encompassing view, which still doesn't relegate any particular area, but actually gives it, again, the relational support to leverage the importance of that area.
My concern is just that we're asking people to do something that they don't currently do. So we have to establish new programs within different departments, and that's going to be challenging and a financial hit to them too. I agree that administration has a big, broad umbrella, but if we put too many things under it, we're going to be in the same stagnant kind of condition we're in, because the administrators can only do, they need the people underneath them. That's why they administrate people.
So if we start changing.
See, I saw,
job-
I'm
see,
sorry.
I'm just saying that, if we go to the, I don't know if people understand that, there's board policies that we can't override or change. And if they've already made up their mind, like if you just Google on their site a particular topic, you come up where they've had policies, they get at all their meetings. They change all kinds of policies based on reasoning, based on other documents they see that we've never seen. And for that reason, they have the departments a certain way. So you're going to spend all your time then not knowing what that is, and then saying that you want to combine something a certain way when there is no resource, money, or person in that department to even do it like that.
Last comment. I agree that organizationally, there's a direct connection between the qualified staffing and hiring, whatever we want to call it, and the administration. And keeping those two areas aligned, I think there's a benefit to. My other observation, though, is that I think, personal opinion, that the professional development is one thing that's sorely lacking currently in the district. And to ask that subcommittee to be responsible for developing and fleshing out a very specific, concrete, tangible professional development plan, we're going to lose it. We're not going to attain it. So that's why I think we can have professional development under a combined administrative and qualified staffing and hiring in terms of just one objective that says we're committed to professional development or something to that effect, but have a separate subcommittee that really takes on in detail professional development down here. And then we can marry the two on April 14th when we all come back. But in terms of developing the plans, I'm concerned if we put professional development. In terms of combining the subcommittees, I'm concerned about putting professional development under those other two at this point.
Agreement? Just nod.
Yes.
Okay.
So then what about, because I had all three, what about administration and qualified staffing?
Yeah.
That's agreed.
Administration is like the
Right, so
heading.
that's agreed. So we've already narrowed one down.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Collaboration. Is there life with collaboration and professional development?
I think that there's life with collaboration and administration, because administrators are helping to collaborate amongst general ed, special ed teachers, outside agencies, special ed departments, regular ed departments, DO, school site.
Tony?
I think there's a stronger combination between collaboration, curriculum, and classroom.
I agree.
Okay, one more time.
I said I think that I believe that there'd be a stronger groove that could come together with collaboration and curriculum and classroom, because the collaboration transcends just special education and general education teachers, but it also encompasses parent collaboration. And for parents from the special education background, it is important for us to be aware and to have knowledge of curriculum and classroom, how those are designed, and how our children can and should be included as part of that.
Okay, just for clarifying for myself, collaboration and under collaboration was curriculum and classroom. Was there another item? We felt that those two could go together.
I felt it. I don't know if
Okay.
it's a we.
Well, no, the group was, that was actually one of the first overwhelming ahas. Yes, and then yes, very quickly.
Along with collaboration, curriculum should go with evidence-based assessments.
Yes. Yes.
Evidence-based yes.
Okay, I'd like to say that I agree about the collaboration and curriculum in classroom because the success of what goes on in the classroom is based on collaboration. I think that's really important. But I think also evidence-based assessments and practices, I think we really need to do a really close look at that. And I'm kind of sitting on the fence whether that should be incorporated into those other two committees.
Or
Let-
instead of one.
Let's ask the question. The purpose of evidence-based assessments. What is the purpose?
To define students' needs.
Which drives
Drives
curriculum.
curriculum, yeah.
And instruction.
Okay, so are we saying that evidence-based assessments would be a good fit with curriculum in classroom?
Yes.
I
Now,
think
mind
it's a
you,
good
it
fit,
does
it's
not
just a
mean that you
broad
do not
area.
have access to one another as resources. Just because we're grouping them doesn't mean there's this fence that's built around that particular topic. Thank you. All right. Compliance and monitoring.
Could we slide it under every student, every school?
Compliance and monitoring. Every student, every school?
Underneath, yes. Keep every student, every school as the title and move compliance underneath it.
I disagree with that wholly. I think compliance and monitoring is the huge umbrella over everything, not just every student, every school. I think that would be unfortunate. Every student, every school is only a part of what you're looking at with compliance.
Yes. And then Louise?
Compliance has a legal definition, both federal and state. That has nothing to do with our decision to be every student, every school.
And we are the special ed task force, so we're speaking specifically of compliance and monitoring as it pertains to special education, and that's, yeah, it's a standalone, and it's
Okay.
so, it's the bedrock of
Okay.
special education.
So compliance and monitoring will remain as a standalone.
I don't know. I mean, I think there's people in the room that agree with considering evidence-based assessments and practices. What was the downside to that? Remind me?
Yeah.
No, we're
It's
past
with
that.
curriculum in classroom. Because,
I beg your pardon. That's what I meant to say. Curriculum in classroom.
okay, yeah, it's with that one.
It is?
Mm-hmm,
Oh, okay.
yeah. Good catch, Don. All right, so we've got compliance and monitoring
Alone.
alone.
Right.
Transition.
It's my opinion that transition and extended school year should be together.
I agree with that.
And I say that because just thinking strictly in terms of the transition necessary to go from elementary to middle. That extended school year is necessary to help bridge that very imperative transition. And by the way, when our kids are most probably going to run into full-fledged bullying, is when they transition from elementary school to middle school. That's where it gets brutal.
I actually spoke with someone else about that earlier today, about that particular time period. I
Right.
believe it was Carol. I think we were talking about that. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we have transition, extended school year, anything else under, with transition? Not under, but with transition.
Transition is part of everything that we're doing. I think it's from preschool to elementary school. It is, I think Sean addressed as matriculation from one grade to the next. It's elementary school to middle school to high school, and high school to adult life. I think the transition to extended school year absolutely is an issue, but I think transition can be addressed in a number of the issues that we're dealing with in different groups. So I think we need to keep that in mind.
I concur, but I want to add that up to this point, the district, I've clearly identified some major issues that the district has with transition needs as they pertain to IEPs. And maybe I'm even about to make Judy's point, but the whole effort, and this is something that I've been saying, we need to start planning for every transition once that special education student has their first IEP, because there is well-known data already about based upon what the students' assessed needs are and what drives that student's IEP, what challenges, well, no, there should be well documented, because I don't know that it is. I've learned these things, but the IEP should be written, let's say, for a child with developmental or with intellectual delays, and with fine motor skill challenges, et cetera, starting with kinder. When we know that, let's say in first grade, certain things are going to happen, in middle school, certain things are going to happen, like learning to use combination locks. All of that should start being written into the IEPs. And the bullying issue, that's something that we could start, building into a knowledge base, at least for the parent and the students, not necessarily calling it bullying so that the student won't be scared or frightened, but preparing them for these kinds of transitions.
That was actually something that was shared in the very first meeting, that it should begin and be documented back to kindergarten.
Yeah, I said that.
That's actually been one of those concepts that's held.
But
throughout
that's
all of
why
the
I think
meetings.
we should blend transition and extended school year, because the extended school year, if it's going to even exist, it should serve a purpose. It should be actually assisting the student with maintaining the knowledge that they learned the year prior. But if they're making the transition from elementary to middle school, perhaps that extended school year should look different. Maybe the student should actually be going on campus at the new schools and learning some of and this should be written in their IEPs, to learn some of the new skills that they're going to need for that transition. And maybe they should start visiting those schools during extended school year, let's say beginning in 4th grade and then 5th grade, blah, blah, blah.
I do have a question. We have pre-K, which the audit recommendations around pre-K were for curriculum and materials. And we also have every student, every school left. Those are the two that remain. Is the relationship with pre-K and curriculum and classroom strong enough for pre-K to live in that same place?
Here's the concern with pre-K. The concern with pre-K is twofold. One is the majority of problems that exist, that get propagated down the road, occur when the student enters the system. And if the student doesn't enter the system properly on every facet, meaning the relationship that's developed between the district and this family, as well as how they're assessed, as well as that introduction, that's the issue, in my opinion. So pre-K is critical because, on one level, it sets the tone for everything else that happens. On a second level, in one of our prior meetings, it was discussed that things seem to be done properly in pre-K, meaning that funding, resources, the care of really knowing that student is really devoted, and then the push-off from pre-K into the system after that, things seem to get lost and more fragmented. So with pre-K, it's not so much about where can it be combined with anything else. I think it's about the entry into the system. And so pre-K is where a lot of students enter the system. It's not where every student enters the system. So I think pre-K could be redefined as entry into the system, but a large focus under pre-K, since that's where many of them fall.
Well, the reason I pose that question is because evidence-based assessments also lives there. Mr. Costello? I said the reason that I asked that question is because evidence-based assessments is also in that same grouping.
I was going to make the point that assessments in our conversation last Saturday, when group 3 or 5 brought it up, wasn't related to evidence-based. It was about making sure that the assessment at the student's entry into its relationship with the district was properly done.
Did you just indicate that the assessments were not, we said that they were not evidence-based, that they shouldn't be together? Did I just misunderstand you?
No, I'm bringing in personal experience into this, and in our own personal experience, I know that there is, I don't want to label anything, but
But a default between the assessment and the practice? There wasn't correspondence between what was assessed and what was...
assessment that was done incorrectly, resulting in a whole different type of issue going forward.
So it's not so much this pre-K as much as it is the entree into the system.
What
By
is the
system
system?
into its relationship, the student's relationship with the district.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
What system are we talking
The
about?
students-
PUSD.
The beginning of the relationship between the student, the student's family, and the school district.
The Pasadena Unified School
Yeah.
District, okay.
Yes, Ruth Ann?
I'm just wondering if that then would be pre-K transition and extended school year might be an umbrella for, the beginning the process, continuing the process throughout that
I can
stage.
see that. I can see that. Sean?
Under curriculum and classroom, I put pre-K, transition, evidence-based assessment and practice, and ESY, because they all have to do with what's going on in the classroom and what the curriculum is for those children. We also have to realize that when we talk pre-K, we may be talking early intervention, and there is intervention that starts for about 3% of our population, which are children with developmental disabilities, which will start outside of the school system and then collaborate with the school system upon age 3. So
Okay.
there is a search and serve component also that we haven't mentioned, that we need to go out and look for kids that have difficulty. And the majority of kids that are not going to be seen until they're in the district system are going to be children with learning disabilities, reading, writing, math.
So you're saying that, again, there is a relationship.
There is, I believe so.
Anyone else?
I totally agree. And children with learning disabilities that actually could be picked up in preschool, there are indications that they're going to have issues. I am very appalled that those indicators are not recognized at the preschool level. So I totally agree.
Would that be acceptable?
What is it?
What is
What
it?
is it?
So restate it.
What did you say, Sean?
Sean?
Sean said curriculum and classroom encompassed evidence-based assessment, pre-K, and which was the third?
Transition.
And transition.
And there was a fourth, ESY.
Oh, extended school year, yeah.
Yes, because basically ESY is an issue of curriculum. I
And
mean,
transition.
and transition. So I agree with that.
But again, the curriculum in classroom we had labeled together with evidence-based assessments and practices. So does that curriculum and evidence-based get separated again?
No,
I mean, we
no.
can't
What we're-
divide
what
it
we're- I'd have her
twice.
practice without
What
it.
we are actually looking at, and I want you to visualize this, is kind of a waterfall effect. You're trying to capture the student as they and their family enter the district. The experience with the assessments and practices drives the curriculum and what happens in the classroom. And what Sean is then saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that as a result of that, the connection between the entree into the district, the development of the relationship, the initial assessments that are done, curriculum and classroom experience is then formed for that particular student, and then the transition supports should come out of the curriculum as well as the extended school year experience, so that they should all be grouped together. So it's a bit of a waterfall effect that we have going here. Each one is driving the other forward.
So that's 4 groups together,
That would be.
or is it 5? So it's pre-K, transition, extended school year, curriculum and classroom, and what else?
Evidence-based assessment.
Evidence-based
practice.
assessment and practices.
So that, how is,
I see the area as curriculum classroom, and the pre-K transition, evidence-based practice and assessment, and ESY would fall under those.
Yes.
If I can make a suggestion to the group, I wouldn't recommend getting too big in these categories because.
Yeah, I was just
you'll
gonna
get-
say, that's too many in one.
My suggestion to the group would be pre-K transition extended school year as one group, collaboration, curriculum and classroom, evidence-based assessment as a second group. And then they are very large, they are very important, but I think they're small enough and manageable. And I just have a question for you, Sharon, on process. I assume that part of the process is we'll have a date where we all come back with all of our SMART goals.
It's on the
And
bottom.
we'll review them as a team so that we can talk about interrelated pieces.
on the bottom of
It's
the
on the
sheet.
bottom of the
Right.
the
I just,
subcommittee doc.
I want to make, I'm reiterating it, just to make sure I understand the process so that we realize we aren't going to go off work in silos and nobody's going to see anything.
This is, again, one of the reasons that I was trying to create an environment for everyone to be able to see the work product of each group. Because if you read something, you want to make a recommendation, you can send an email to everyone that's in that group saying, I think this should be included. Have you thought about, here's my concern about, keep the line, this is a transparent process. No one is to operate in a silo.
We wrote a SMART goal in that area too. Here are the 2 SMART goals we've come up with so far. You're in a different committee. So we'll have a lot of cross-pollination, I think. I think we want to keep the group separate enough so that people are free to come up with different ideas in different places, so that if one group doesn't think of something, another group can come up with an idea in that area. I mean, I don't think, it's my suggestion. I'd keep them as 2, 3 category groups so that you can have some cross-pollination, so that you can have a manageable workload.
Okay. In agreement? Just nod.
I'm
I see
not
a head
sure,
shaking.
I'd love to be able to see it in black and white, because now I'm really confused,
Okay.
so.
The way it reads, sorry, I ran out of wall.
Okay.
Here we are. We have administration covering staffing, recruitment, professional development is standing on its own. Under collaboration, with collaboration, we have curriculum and classroom, evidence-based assessments and practices. We have compliance and monitoring. We also have transition, pre-K, and extended school year. We haven't gotten to that one yet. That's actually the very last. Yes, Monica.
I have a question. Everybody's speaking in generalities when, if we're going by the studies, pre-K was about the curriculum, okay? So you now taken pre-K and put it as if it's about just transition? Because you've taken it out of,
Well, that was actually my question, because the audit
See-
recommendation was specifically related to the curriculum and development of materials.
right, so now you've put it in transition, and what was the other one?
Extended school year. That was my question. Could it live with curriculum?
Well, it's not about living, it's just about what are we trying to do here? I thought we were trying to implement the studies. We then narrowed it down to particular areas, and then we formed groups based on that concept. And now we're ripping them apart and putting them back together based on
We are refining.
I don't consider this refining. We have to agree to disagree. I don't at all. I find this now people using all kinds of reasons to recombine things which are not related to our initial goal and objective.
Actually, this is very much our initial goal and objective, because what you had
Combine everything together?
previously had 34 recommendations that stood alone.
Well, there is a reason they were alone.
And I'll just go ahead and, you had 34 recommendations that stood alone. The group understood that by bringing those together that had relationship, that one, you could create a comprehensive plan rather than trying to create 34 plans. And if you have items that have a strong enough relationship with each other, again, it's not that you are blending those topics, it's you are actually leveraging the relationship that one has to another.
But if you listen to the comments people are making, that's not what's happening here.
Actually, that is what I'm
I
hearing.
disagree.
Maybe
I'll
I'm-
listen again to the tape, I don't.
We've got Mike, Tony, Sean.
So again, I think my concern is that we're feeling pressure because we don't have a starting point. My understanding, this group, from day one, at the end of the day, the goal is to improve academic achievement of students served by special education. So whatever we need to do that, that's our overriding goal. We started this process by looking at the 10 audits or 11 audits and recommendations, 11 audits that have been formed to use as a starting point. But those recommendations were never an end-all be-all. If we felt that there were things that weren't captured by those 11 audits and task forces and committees, we were certainly open to bring them to the table, one of which is extended school year, which Louise mentioned on the first day, and that's now part of this. There was never a recommendation about extended school year in any of the previous committees. So yes, pre-K in its first initial form was all about curriculum and making sure that they had the supports they need. What I'm bringing to the table is that there's an additional issue with pre-K in the sense that it's the establishing of the relationship of the student with the district. And so it goes beyond, there's an issue beyond just curriculum and supports for pre-K, but how are we implementing a student's entry into the district? So it's not necessarily that things are being combined or recalibrated. Yes, in a certain sense they are, and the goal is to capture everything that's happened before, but with the freedom to bring in extended school year or other issues that we feel should be captured within this process as well.
I
Sean,
I am
then
correct.
don't
Tony.
I don't
even
know.
have a comment to that.
I think that it's quite possible to just take pre-K, have a goal within the transition block, and have a goal within the curriculum block. I mean, we do need to focus on this specific group of children, and it doesn't have to be something that sits only in one category or even on its own, but should be infused into all of them.
Yeah.
And there should be a goal for pre-K in at least two of these areas.
I think
That's a standalone goal.
orchestrating the successful relationship is, as Louise often tells us, imperative. And it starts with the beginning. And that's where you've got the evidence-based assessments where, there's a relationship there that I don't believe can be overlooked. But again, as Tony said, we've also pointed out that the successful transition from kindergarten to the first grade is also one of those areas where there's big steps that are taken. So this is just Sharon speaking. I like the idea of having it in both places so that both of those areas are addressed in the appropriate context. So it's not just one big thing. You've got a context related to how valuable and important the assessments and the entry to the district are. And then two, how important that first transition is. It's just me talking.
I can agree with that.
No.
Yeah.
Ruth Ann.
Sorry, I think I
Well,
was
Carol
next.
Higa
That's
is
all right.
here representing administration and is responsible for pre-K, so maybe she has an opinion that she would like to express.
Carol, your mic. Love you. Now bring the mic closer to your mouth so we can hear you.
Pre-K under curriculum and classroom, as well as transition, because that's a big transition from pre-K to K.
Okay. All right.
Sharon, you skipped over me. I don't think it was purposeful.
No, I was pointing at you, and then Tony started speaking. I thought you two had worked. I thought he had relegated his floor. You had relegated your floor time.
No. It was a Mike, Tony, Sean thingy.
I saw you look over here.
I just, my only concern about separating out pre-K with transition and ESY and having curriculum and evidence-based stuff separately is that it sounds like we're developing stuff just for pre-K. Pre-Ks, transitions, pre-Ks, ESYs, and it's all about the curriculum that comes into place in that, to me, in that classroom with that particular kid, those particular children. But then there are transitions in all areas of our classroom and curriculum, not just pre-K. And then obviously then one would think that evidence-based assessment would drive the programs and the curricula in those school settings. So my concern is if we separate out a grade level, it's going to be an emphasis on that level rather than really what this encompasses is like what Mike was talking about might fall more under administration to make sure that they have the administrators give the parent the information they need to become part of the system. And maybe it's not part of the classroom teacher or classroom curriculum that guides that new person to the system, but an administrator or a program specialist. So, my opinion. I don't know if I clearly made it.
Basically, we're talking pre-K to students transitioning out of school at
we're talking
at
the
graduation
spectrum.
or age 22. And it just seems to me that that is the appropriate place to have pre-K, where we're talking about assessing and curriculum, because that's what you're talking about in pre-K too, as well as all those other places.
Yeah. The transition concept was to be from entry point until they exit the system, and I think we even referenced voc ed. Yeah. Monica and then Louise.
I just want to say that also, especially if you're thinking of it, if we're still going to do inclusion, that a lot of the regular ed kids fall out also between 6th and the 7th grade, because you go from having like a one teacher to now having to run around to lockers to, more than one teacher at most campuses. It used to not be that way, but now it is that way at a lot of school sites. And you lose a lot of kids when it comes to algebra also, and that's a big time of transition and dropout. You'll see our dropout rate increases markedly during that period of time for all subgroups. So we didn't want to make just programs that affected, I thought, just special ed kids, but something that would improve overall by reducing funding and would affect the regular ed population as well. So when I think of transitions, I think there's more than just transitioning problems. I think the transition problem is actually similar when you come to certain grade levels, and it does exist, and it's just as real as pre-K to K.
Following up on what Monica just said, I since this is the Special Education Task Force, and we can't solve the world's problems, I think we really need to stick with the challenges of the special education community. And, you know, what Monica just shared is duly noted. I did not know that because that's not an issue I've dealt with for a long time. But I can say I have seen firsthand what happens in the transition process, because I'm one of those annoying type parents who actually is on campus a lot and observing what's really happening with not just my student in special ed, but other students. And I can see there is massive confusion for most of the children that I happen upon are children with mild to moderate intellectual delays, what once was called, you know, mental retardation, etc. And once those students transition from elementary school to middle school, the horror things that I saw, like kids urinating on themselves, these are middle school people, and many of the teachers that I saw were not prepared. The attempts to open lockers, the attempts in both regular classes and PE rooms and dressing for PE. It's really the anxiety levels that I saw going up, as well as bullying. So my real point is this. I like the idea of, personally, I like the idea of keeping pre-K transition and extended school year together, but us being able to tap into the well-defined curriculum and classroom, evidence-based assessment, et cetera. I think if those are kept separate and really, really well-defined, they'll be our Bible. And we can say for the IEPs, et cetera, you know, this has got to be in place, blah, blah, blah. That would be my recommendation.
Yes,
Fortunately, there are committee members that are on both those committees, so there'll be some people that are, you know, crossing over, like I see Pam Mellon, Susan Go, and some of the others that are on both committees, so that will be a lot of strength, because you'll have that information, that input going both ways.
Okay, a reminder, the discussion has always been transition to address from pre-K through exit. So, you know, we're not just developing a pre-K plan. Okay, last is every student, every school. That one is basically already defined. That gives us 6 groups. Much more manageable.
Sharon.
Yes.
Not to throw a wrench into it.
Didn't you cringe when you heard that voice?
I think you did. Hopefully not the voice, maybe just the name.
Didn't hear your name yet.
Under professional development, the one thing I put under there was every student, every school. And my idea is that every school and every student's going to have its own culture and community and require what its school site needs for professional development. And like I gave the example earlier, Jim's program and Garrett's program require very different things. Even though there are a few children in Mr. Newsom's program that meet that are similar to some of Jim's students in his PALS program, the majority is very, very different. So to say everybody, like the other day I heard, everybody went down to Focus Point to, not everybody, but a big group to have a behavioral in-service. Well, that was good, but it was really focusing on conduct disorder and oppositional defiance, not behaviors that come from other places. So again, not to get into, I shouldn't have even gotten into that particular, but under professional development, I saw the one thing as every school and every student needs to have its own level of development, so it creates the program it needs for its school and staff.
Well, the only comment I have regarding that is, it would seem to me that the subcommittee that has that would recommend a district-wide plan and then site plans that support their needs but also support a district-wide plan. Would that not be the way it would work or should work?
Do you mean district-wide behavior support plan, or what?
No, I'm referring to the specifically related to professional development, that they're,
Would you mind saying it again? There
I
were a couple cited, I couldn't hear it.
oh.
I'm really sorry.
My comment was that because we are thinking district-wide, that the group tackling the professional development aspect would consider a recommendation around the development of a district-wide professional development plan, and they would also have a SMART objective that spoke to the need for site plans that supported, meaning kind of filling in the gaps for their staff to meet the goals of the district plan.
I hear you.
So the two working hand in hand.
My concern is from past history of seeing the professional development. It is district-wide pretty much only, and it doesn't seem to meet the needs. There are a lot of people that go to a lot of in-services that they will not implement at all in their classrooms.
Okay.
And so it's a waste of resources. So by looking at each school as kind of like a standalone little state or whatever, then they get the exact supports they need within their setting.
Well, I think, but does that not go back to what I was saying, though? If the group handling this were to have both of those as their SMART objectives,
Yeah.
it seems that it would address
It would.
that
I just
area.
want to make sure that they're like this district-wide professional development might be things like child abuse, bullying, big topics,
Sure.
versus everybody's going to get G-tube feeding, or everybody's going to get CPI, or everybody's going to get.
Sure.
Sean, are you saying then, because I agree, that professional development is missing and sometimes missing the implementation part of the development? You know, one thing is getting trained, but we're talking about, so what if you're trained? Is it getting implemented?
Yeah, that and just the individualized need of each school site may not be met.
Mr. Costello's been incredibly patient.
So, I don't think professional development is missing anything yet, because professional development, that subcommittee has not actually met yet. So, again, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves in a certain aspect, because we are figuring out obstacles that haven't even begun to take shape yet. So, a couple things. I want to get started in terms of actually getting these subcommittees meeting so that we can have a check-in point, ideally on March 28th before we leave, and sort of pick out where all these deficiencies are. I think that we have to have faith in each other, that we're all coming here with the best intentions. That's one of our norms. And agree that areas that I'm deficient in are going to be picked up by you or by Jim or by Carol or whomever else, and that we'll come to a comprehensive solution. Specifically as it regards this last one, every student, every school. I think that that needs to be a standalone one, because that's encompassing many different issues, which are going to be including transportation. It's going to be including student populations in terms of what services are here versus what services are there, and how the students are broken up by age grades. That committee, the 4 people on that committee, of which I'm one, we stayed after last Wednesday, and we sort of spoke about how we viewed every student, every school as sort of a bigger umbrella that's going to need to bring all these other committees in areas into place. And so that's why I would suggest that we don't try to combine it with something else, and believe that the Professional Development Committee will look at a district-wide policy as well as school-side policies, and when we have these check-in points, we can marry everything together.
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to mention that each school has a school plan that outlines professional development for that site. And many times there are layers on that. For instance, a few years ago, the school board adopted the thinking maps, and each school sent a staff member to the training, and that staff member trained their staff on their site. And the principals did do follow-up to make certain that every staff member knew how to use the thinking maps. And periodically, we have at our school site thinking map workshops. And we have walkthroughs where we look at each other's thinking maps in our classrooms. We've done the same thing this year with the Kangen strategies, teaching strategies, which calls for student engagement. Some of the teachers went for training over the summer, and they're training us on a regular basis throughout the year. And then our principal is giving us feedback on our use of the strategies. So we do have a couple of different layers of professional development here in place in the district that includes the site as well. But in terms of the school plan, the committee that makes the school plan at each site looks at the needs of that particular school, makes goals, measurable goals for the student achievement, and then looks at what kind of professional development needs to go with that in order to create the growth that they're looking for. So that's done, and that's in place at the school site. And sometimes that's layered with what the district is doing district-wide. We're now involved in the RTI for behavior, which implements the positive school-wide behavior plan. And we have teams from each school throughout the district attending the training and then bringing it back to our school sites. So I think that's pretty exciting, and it's something that we need to know about, and then also identify what are the needs of the special education population at each school site. That should be part of the school plan. There should be a goal, particularly because there is a gap between the special education subset and general population in achievement. There should be a goal written into the school plan for each school so that our students with special needs can have goals that are addressed and professional development to enable the staff to help the kids meet the goal. And that would be an exciting part for the professional development committee to write a goal about.
I just wanted to follow up on what you were saying because you spoke extensively about these school plans. Are you speaking of the plans put together by the school site councils? Okay, because I know they're anemic when it comes to special education.
And that's where we
So-
can make a difference.
So, you spoke with great eloquence about the school site council's plans or the plans by the schools, which are the school site councils. But I sit in and have since kinder on school site councils, and I know special education. If I bring that word up, I get looks of disdain, but I continue to advocate for our children. So, for the record, we need to indicate that everything that you just said doesn't deal with, that's more regular ed and hardly at all addresses the issue of special education. But your closing statement about putting together a model for or a component for special ed, and it shouldn't be a subset. It should be a definite, measurable goal, but it should be incorporated into the entire discussion at the school site council meetings.
Kathy, are you on your school site council?
Not at this time, no.
Have you been?
When I was principal, I was, yes.
That's the point I was trying to make.
And we did have a goal for our students with disabilities in making progress, both academically and socially. And I think it's really important that, because most of the schools have been putting in goals for their students where there is a gap between achievement, in a subset. So, our special ed kids need to be addressed also in our school plans.
Okay, let's make certain we remain focused. The question, the issue on the floor is, does every student, every school remain its own category? Okay. We have 6 from 11. Yes. I'm going to, only because I need an opportunity to make a quick transition. No play on words. I need about 5 minutes. This will give everyone an opportunity, if you, based on the consolidation that we have. And you will see on some of these that I have something that may be listed under it. It's only because there's not enough room to go across. It's not because something is a subset of something else. So there's no meaning or importance that I want you to apply to the way it is listed. So during the break, come on up. I'll put this up. And then we will, because we need about a 5-minute break, just for me to get some things on the wall to see if anyone wants to either change their assignment or their self-identified subcommittee, or if you want to simply follow the merging that we did today. In fact, I don't even need to put chart paper up to know that. Do you want to just follow the merging that we did today? And then I'll just send out a new subcommittee chart. Everybody good? Because I know that I can share 6 documents because I've already done that. So our Google environment, it will just be a matter of me making some adjustments. Again, sending out email to everyone so that you can have access to that document. Then in that case, we don't need a break. We're good. We're good. We're good. I'll make certain everyone has this in their email by tonight. And we're good on that. Thank you. I know those conversations can be challenging, but as long as we keep moving forward, we're good. I need everyone to go to this legal size worksheet that I created for you, because this is still relevant.
The template?
Yes. Yes, the template, yeah. I like color, in case you can't tell.
Me too.
What you see in front of you is, again, it's a very basic template. It's a Word document. Each one of the boxes expands. And what you are going to see as your subcommittee works together is you're going to actually see kind of a stair-step effect. Your area should be listed in that first box. And I'd like for you to always indicate your area in bold so it can just pop out at us. The recommendation that you are addressing based on that area, let me ask you, is there a need for me to redo may I borrow this, Joyce? Will it be helpful to you for me to redo this, or will you be able to simply follow the combinations once I email it to you? Oh, that's so good, because my husband wanted to take me to see a movie today. He was actually going to come with me today. Yeah, he says, I haven't seen you much. Wow.
Give him the website. He'll know what you look like from all directions.
Honey, I'm streaming live. What are you talking about? Okay, so we won't need to redo this. And this will actually take care of, Tony, the concern you had the other night. There was overlap. There was the obvious overlap. And so, again, I know that it can be frustrating, but I'm glad we did what we did, because now that overlap is not causing you to feel that you have to, address maybe only a piece or part. Yes.
I'm sorry.
Hold on.
Just
Tony.
it seems achievable now.
Okay, little lighter. Ruth Ann.
I was going to recommend that we take this blue thing and just so everybody's on the same page, combine. Because this now will be transferred to this, correct, in each of our little.
Well, as I was saying, you need to indicate the recommendation number in the recommendation column that you're going to be creating your SMART objective for.
Okay.
So the SMART objective will then go in the objective column for that particular recommendation. Now, let's say you have 5 SMART objectives for one recommendation. There is no need for you to retype the recommendation. What we want to see are obvious groupings. And that will make it easier for your group as you're working together, because you don't have to look to see what, are we still on the same recommendation? So you'll have the recommendation here. You only need to put it once until you start working on the next recommendation. And then whatever objectives that your group creates, that goes along with that particular recommendation. Is everyone following me so far? Tony?
Because I have heard that there's a number of documents that are necessary for a lot of the areas that we're looking at. Can we have a code, maybe a red code, and for those documents that are missing, that they would be coded as red in the barriers, obstacles, so that way, until we have those documents, it's very, very clear to everyone that those need to be found and submitted to the groups.
No, there is another option. I have some room. If I just condense these a little more, and I can actually create a column that says resource needed to address that particular recommendation. See, I'm flexible.
But will you still be able to go to the movie if you do that later?
Yeah.
Are we gonna say resources needed by or due date or something to
Well,
that effect?
the category will say resource needed. You indicate the resource that you need, and then if you know a date, certainly give it.
But the assumption would be that as soon as possible.
Right. Now, mind you, again, Leonard will be the joint resource person. So there may be groups that are asking for the same thing. That will be very easy for, well, I can't say very easy because I won't be doing it. But it will be less cumbersome for him to address if you have multiple groups asking for the same thing. But again, it gives us an opportunity to document what you've requested and then also be able to follow up with what you've requested. Okay?
Ruth Ann, in her wonderfully organized fashion, set up a system to put things together. She numbered on the Consolidated Audit Recommendations table things from 1 to 11. And then she took those numbers and put them by optimal environments, okay? And I think if any of you are interested, you might want to look at her wonderfully talented organizational skills.
That sounds any best practice that we can replicate, we want to do that.
Is that available for us on a central point with?
Yeah. Yeah, it was Louise, perhaps you weren't here when I handed those out, optimal environments. I'm also one of my goals is to get any handouts that I have prepared for you, to get those on Google Docs for you to have. Okay?
As we're taking a break.
I'm sorry, Sean.
Sorry.
Mike.
I realize we're coming up on 1 o'clock. I would like to, my concern about what I'd like to get done today before we leave is starting a list of required resources, necessary resources. Because if we wait until we come back on Wednesday, we're going to lose 4 days, and then a lot of things we're not going to be able to accomplish until the following time. We're going to run out. So I'd like to propose that we can, however we want to do it efficiently, start putting together a list of resources that we need. We can always add to it later, but at least it gives whomever 4 days to start, and hopefully on Wednesday we can have some of these resources available that we can start digesting and getting the smart
Yeah, I
objectives
believe
made.
there's actually a list that's been
Yeah,
started.
Mike, is that different than what the list that we?
No,
showed
but
you?
Sharon had tabled that list for the time
Right.
being. I want to make sure that we do that before we.
But it had already gotten pretty long.
So what's gonna happen with it though?
Well, first I'm going to finish walking through the worksheet,
Uh-huh.
and then I'll address it.
Okay, and also, for the meeting, the next meeting, how are we going to be sitting?
First, I'm going to finish the worksheet, and then I'll address that.
Okay, good, thank you.
So, okay, we stopped at your SMART objectives. The proposed action plan that may go along with that particular objective. Again, the goal is for us to all use same format so that when we come together, there's much less work in the end if we go through these steps in the beginning. So the proposed action plan, these boxes will expand. Do not be concerned that you have to make your plan fit this small space. Timeline, very important. If your proposed action plan is review of whatever document indicate the date that that will be reviewed. If it's a submit recommendation to Board of Education, indicate the date that that will be submitted, and even go a step further with a response by fill in the blank. And then we have barriers and obstacles. So for each one of your objectives, if there is a barrier or obstacle, did I? I've gone through multiple batteries. No, I'm still good. No, I'm not. Well, that's okay. It's an excuse for me to take it off. Here we go. Peter.
Okay, I have to give him his props then.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so I'll use this for now.
Thank you.
Excellent job, Peter.
I know, he's like. So if you'll record your barrier or obstacle here, and then as I said, I'm going to add that last category. Now, regarding the resources list, Monica had already started a list. Unfortunately, I just need someone to email it to me. And the reason I need it emailed is because then it becomes a part of the documentation of the task force. You understand? Okay, I'm transparent. I don't need anyone to say, you know, Sharon got this list, we never got what we needed.
You're all set again.
So Monica, are you going to do that?
No, you don't like that mic, I'm sorry.
And then you'll just, I guess, email it to everybody?
Yeah.
So you'll do it by when? You'll do it by when? Okay.
She'll do it today. Of course, of course. Okay, and then regarding Wednesday night, by then you will have your subcommittees, as you said, are just going to be collapsed into the new groupings. You've already got your list. I do have some people who have been added as of just today, so I will put that over there on the table so that you can see who's been added as of today, if there's anyone who wants to make any change or adjustments. There are actually going to be two versions. There's mine, which has little yellow bars, and then there's this one. So if there's any changes, you can actually see right now who's been added, who's not. The resource list, I will email to Leonard as soon as I get it. I'll just forward it right on. As far as I know, he will be back in his office on Monday. He's attending a conference this weekend.
So if Monica just copies him on it, then you'll have it and he'll have it and we'll all have it real time.
Yeah.
Same time.
Yeah. The only reason I wanted it to pass through me first was in case there was I'm sorry. Yeah, duplications, asking a question.
That's just a draft. Then maybe that could be the draft version, the first one that goes out from Monica, and then you could
Sure,
review it and send out the final version.
It will
with your
also give you
changes.
all an opportunity to actually look at it and see if there's something that you did not include today. Okay? But either way, Leonard will have this Monday. Monday. Ruth Ann.
I will not be able to be here Wednesday, except maybe if you guys run late and we run early. So I'm just looking ahead to the May 8th board meeting. Generally, when an agendized item has 30 minutes, I believe, to make their presentation. And I'm just wondering if all of us certainly will not, I mean, there's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be you or an elected speaker.
It won't be me.
It won't be you. Okay, whatever. I do not feel, even though as a broad presentation, all 6 of these will need to be delineated in some form with their own timeframes. But am I visualizing then that, in my mind, I'm feeling like there needs to be a priority of establishing primary, secondary, tertiary, blah, 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 as timelines and presentations for either being a part of that May 8th meeting or working beyond that May 8th
I
meeting?
want to say that I don't want to make that statement right now. One, because we don't have a work product yet. And I'd like to see the timelines before we determined what the presentation would look like. And by timelines, I mean the timelines that you place on your SMART objectives. And we may determine that, okay, even though our report is in this form, that we may want to simply change the format to make the presentation of the information more impactful by, we'll figure that out. We will, I don't need that on anymore. We will work that out as a group. And so I'm going to work with Leonard to schedule March 28th as the Touching Bases meeting. And then that still leaves us with the 14th of April and the 18th of April in order for us to have an opportunity to hear, even though you will have had opportunities to go online and take a look at the work product of other groups, it will still give us that final opportunity to take one last look before documents are consolidated. Yes.
I would recommend that, since we all know these are our marching orders now, that we go before the board before May 8th. We go before the board in April just to give them an overview of what we're doing. Because right now we were a task force that was formed in January, and then there's going to be this big void of who we are and what we're doing until we go before the board May 8th. So we don't have to have a finished product, but I think we can make a statement at one of the board meetings in April.
That's up to the task force. Again, what is my title, Herman?
You're the facilitator. We got it.
Objective third party. No, if the group feels that we need to develop some type of group communique to be shared with the board prior to the date that we submit our information, it's up to you all. You've got some days to think about it. To even get on the board agenda for April, you still have some days to think about it. So let's all think about it and come back with a response on Wednesday. And then again, if that's what we decide, then as a group, we need to develop a singular communication to come from the task force. John?
When we're done, could I have like 2 minutes with the group? Because I just want to announce something.
Okay, sure, absolutely. Are there any other questions for me? Does everyone know what we're being tasked to do and understand our dates and our responsibilities, and the new consolidations are over here? Yes.
Just as a parent, I wanted to apologize to any PUSD employees that I might have offended when I said you're getting paid. I am assuming that you're all here out of, as volunteers to be part of the task force, and that's why you're at the meeting, and I applaud you for that, and I thank you, and I didn't mean to offend you if I did.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I echo that. I know it's, with the passion that parents bring forth, we're the 7 of us that I see here, or that have participated, we, what's driving us, and I hope the community knows what's driving us. It's our kids, but also it's the kids that are coming after ours, and there were people that advocated before us. I went to school. I was in junior high with a kid that was probably one of the first ones. They actually made a movie about him. They did the Mask movie on Rocky, and I was in junior high with him. And I'm now. I know he was probably one of the first ones to be included. I remembered him being in a resource room in high school. He was a year older than I, so I only was with him in junior high for 1 year, and then again at Gladstone High School. but anyways, there's plenty of people. Our past mayor here in Pasadena was a strong advocate. She helped push for the first regional centers, and would meet up with Lanterman up at in the elevator, going up into his hotel room up in Sacramento. And these moms pushed for the non-institutionalization of our kids. So there's plenty of people that have, we're building upon their shoulders. And so sometimes we don't, the passion that you see is not intended to be personal. We know we're dealing with systemic, structural issues that are bigger than any individual. And so anyways, please do not take anything personal when it comes out in a passionate form.
I want to applaud each and every person in this room. One, the passion of a parent, the passion of a teacher who is committed to their students, the passion of a group such as this, that under normal circumstances, you would find yourself sitting across the table from each other, and now you're sitting next to each other. You've got the same purpose, you've got the same mission in mind. To put a group like this together, identifying the people that you have, I'm going to tell you, it is incredibly risky. It is absolutely risky because there is no way to gauge or foresee the success of it. You just know that you get the right people in the room, and you're going to find, you'll work through the murkiness, you'll work through the thing that is most important to me, the thing that is most important to me, and you will find that place of mutuality. And that is what you all have found. I know that today was another hard day, but again, you have found the point of mutuality where what is important to me is not as important as creating a legacy for student populations to come. What is important to me drives the fact that I'm here, but it doesn't drive the fact that I'm a part of something that is going to create a legacy for the future of special ed students in Pasadena. And knowing that just because you do this now, it's the last time it's going to be done. Because you're going to build in points of evaluation where this is reviewed to ensure that it's sustainable and that it continues to have that life that continues to push it forward. So for that, I thank you, thank you, thank you. Everyone, please drive carefully going home today. I saw far too many accidents on the way here today. And then we have the good Dr. Surface who wants to have 2 minutes of your time.
I do. So, and I don't know if this will be recorded or not. I would like it to be because I'd like to. No, if it could be on camera, then I'd like the meeting to continue. And you'll see why. This is a very cool thing. There's a project that's just starting. Ira Hivel out of Pacific Child and Family, who's ran that organization for almost 30 years, is starting a research project. I don't even want to call it a research project. He's starting a project. And the project is he wants to interview as many people as possible who live with autism to determine whether or not people with autism love people or not. And I think that it is an incredible project, and so incredible that we are, in my own organization, trying to get involved with the data collection and the interviewing also. And for many, many years, I've worked with children and families living with autism, and there is this misnomer out there that the children don't have any feelings and they don't have that love inside their hearts. And I think that the people at this table who have the opportunity to work with the children and young adults every day probably, I think, would disagree. I think that they would agree that there's emotions and there's love there. And so they are looking for people. There is a criteria. The person does need to be able to speak for themselves. They would like to be able to video them on camera and feel comfortable sharing that information about love and love in their lives. And there is no age limit, so it doesn't have to be a child, it can be an adult. So I will say, if you're interested at all, you can contact, there's two ways right now that I'm aware of. You can contact my office, and our office number is 626-355-5160. Or you can contact the assistant of Dr. Hivel. It's Carolina Gropa, and her phone number is 323-306-4980. He is wanting to start the project in the Los Angeles and Orange County areas, but if you know people that live in other places, don't limit it, because it will get expanded, because in order to really determine if information is appropriate and correct or not, you got to replicate it. You got to see if it's occurring in other places also. So I just thought I'd throw that out there as the last thing for us to think about. It's always good to end on a loving thought, and that's it.
Thank you. The resource list, where is that?
I'm wondering too if other people are able to stay that are in
Okay,
little groups and subcommittees, if we can kind of brainstorm what first ideas are.
well, are we getting a consensus? Because some people are leaving. I'm gonna suggest that maybe we, well, an important person on two committee, well, not important person, but a vital connection to the district is leaving.
Want something fun to do next weekend? The Shakespeare Club is doing the Music Man at San Gabriel Civic Auditorium.